disappointed in every one of you.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend you.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
I kiss you on the mouth.
No, I'm not cool with that. Just, I'm sorry.
One more time.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
I mean, I'm dealing with degenerate animals.
I'm disappointed in every one of you. Disappointed in every one of you.
All right, come on.
Honestly, I can't do it, man.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
Let me tell you why.
It's gonna be all right, Nicky. Go ahead, shoot.
You just killed a little fucking man.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, because you got nothing. You don't got a thing. Yeah, because you got nothing.
I want to get out of this rat hole. I want to get online. I need
BDA boxing.
Welcome everybody to the BD Boxing Podcast, broadcasting to you live from the True North. Oh, it's good friends to BDA, and I sure am glad that everybody could be on board for this one, fellas. This episode, we got a fantastic one for you. We continue, like I said, the festivities for Crawford Spence. Actually, that's Spence-Crawford, which will be taking place this Saturday. We just had the the official final press conference, and I gotta tell you, it was bizarre. But today we're going to be taking a look at clips 2 of the fight, just in order to cement our picks and try to give you an idea of why we're picking the guy that we are picking. And maybe the last time to, well, not the last time, excuse me. It's also going to be a small opportunity to take down predictions. But of course, tomorrow will be the open line show where everyone's welcome. And I got to tell you, and I got to remind everybody out there, it's going to be a long episode, but we're going to get through it because it's going to be one of those episodes where you have to be on something to be on. Whether on alcohol, caffeine, amphetamine, whatever, you got to be on something, all right? Otherwise, you do not get through the door. I want to give a big shout out to everybody in the chat. Who am I talking about here? King Bucho in the house as well. Spence, Eparokua, Elevatom, TFPHNC, I don't know what that type of name is. The Quags in there, shout out to the Quags. Shout out to Fury Owns Wakanda. Errol Spence in the house. Al Sharpton's Boxing Fat Cheeseburger Nation in there as well. Dark Hot Doe. Shadow Combat. Impala CCD. Mark T. Evan Deere. How many more people to come? I'm sure, fellas. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Well, I gotta tell you, the fight is getting nearer, and so are the tempers flaring as the fight grows nearer. Let me tell you, this conference that they had, final press conference that is a little heated, a little tense, is the official headline on boxing scene. And I was a little worried that something might go down. But indeed, thank the lucky stars, nothing did occur. There was a lot of jawing, a lot of yapping in between, going back and forth. So that's the type of thing you want to see to sell a fight. You don't want it to go overboard too. And then that just looks bad. See, we got Gonzalo jumping in here. Gonzalo, you there? All right, I think he's
Hey, how's it going, Mr. BDA?
Doing fantastic, Gonzalo. Thank you for jumping in, man. Just before we start the film analysis, did you catch the final press conference?
Yeah, I woke up and I put my TV on about 5 a.m. and caught up with it.
A lot of jawing and back and forth, huh? You think the animosity here, well, not animosity necessarily between the fighters, but that now it's getting tense as the fight grows near after 4 years of back and forth. It seems like it's finally heating up.
Yeah, it's a little awkward. It's a little awkward. I don't understand why the fighters would go after. It's not like they went after the other fighters' family or fans like that hard, but why they had an opinion about this? Like, hey, you need to be quiet, and Errol Spence too. You need to be quiet. I'm not thinking it was one of those things where they have respect for each other, and instead of going at each other, they're like directing it to other people. But basically, they're kind of like if not mad at each other, they're out to settle the score.
Well, it's interesting that as I was watching the press conference, like you said, every time Crawford would say something tense or speak as if he was going to do something to Spence, somebody would start screaming in the crowd, and vice versa. Every time Spence started talking about what he was going to do on Saturday, Crawford's entourage and family members started jawing at each other, and I'm thinking, that's representative of what's going on in social media between the fans. Because Errol Spence was on Mike Tyson's podcast last night or last evening, and he said the same thing. He said, the tensions are higher with our fans or between our fans than our actual selves. It's the fans that are doing all the jawing as if they're going to fight, and that's what happened here today in the final press conference. It's these family members jawing at each other as if they're going to fight. I think they should be respectful and keep their mouths shut. I mean, it made for some wild entertainment, but at the same time, it kind of looks bad. Well, what do you think? Did it look bad, or how did you interpret everything that was going down?
No, it's just normal. I mean, yeah, obviously every fight's different. Not everything's going to be carbon copy. So every fight's got its own dynamic. Interestingly, BD, I was watching Joe Rogan. I was listening to go to sleep. Joe Rogan, there was this guy on his latest interview that said when, particularly in fighting, that when two fighters fight, depending on who you're rooting for, that'll like lower or raise your testosterone level. That's crazy, man. Right? What you just mentioned about the fans is true.
Huh. So wait a minute.
So like, let's say your fighter wins. It's in the best interest of your significant other, because that'll raise your testosterone, and that means that
wait.
It can even make you perform better, and the opposite way around. If your fighter loses, it'll lower your testosterone. I was like, man, that's just crazy. I understand why people get pissed off.
Are you saying that Spence and Crawford fans are acting like women? They're acting like they're Crawford and Spence's wives? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it could have a negative impact, I'm thinking. Not directly, but somehow.
Well, there was certainly a lot of energy in that press conference. I saw some comments of people saying that they were afraid that something was going to go, and I quote, going to go down. And thankfully nothing did. But listen, we're at the point of the fight now where tomorrow's the weigh-in. By the way, that also brings up the question, Gonzalo, because you know how people are, right? Everyone always talks about how, well, not everyone, but a lot of people always say that they want to wait before the weigh-in to see how the fighters look before they make an official prediction. How did you think both guys looked up there?
Not too bad.
But not good, you're saying?
They just they cut the weight. I mean, I'm not real good at telling the difference, like if he's emaciated or not. I know Crawford looks a little thinner, but he is the smaller dude. So I mean, he looks not gaunt, but he looks chiseled in the face. What Errol Spence? It's kind of weird because I mean they've been cutting for like a month or two, so it's one of those things after you've been watching them like 2-3 times a weekly for the last few weeks. It's hard to tell the difference, right?
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting though. You know what I found interesting though, Gonzalo, and I think it's going to be more apparent tomorrow. Whether someone is emaciated or not. But one thing I did notice was that for one of the few times, or one of the first times that I recall, Terence Crawford showed up with a beard, a big beard and hair. I don't know if that was sort of maybe that's to distract people from how dry he might be looking. Usually he looks okay, but here he had a beard, looked like a homeless guy, as people were saying. And I don't know if that was to hide the fact that maybe he's feeling at 35 years of age, he's feeling the effects of having to cut weight for the, what is it now, 12th time in this division. I don't know. We shall see. By the way, shout out to Scalebender for his contribution to the super chat. He says, what's he saying here? Hold on a second. He says, for tomorrow's show, how about dope, grass, hash, coke, mescaline, downers, Nebitol, tonal, color hydrates? How about any uppers, amphetamines? How about a Cadillac? How about a brand new Cadillac? You want it with the fix? Yeah, he's like, he's talking. That's a little reference there. I'll leave it up to people to see if they can figure out where it's from, man.
How about dope? Grass, hash, coke, mescaline, downers, Nebutol, tonal, chloral hydrates.
I'm telling you.
How about uppers, amphetamines? Crystal meth. I can get you crystal meth. Nitrous oxide.
Yeah, well, shout out to Uncle Pete for his contribution right there. Everyone will be watching tomorrow's weigh-in, and I'm like I said, you got to be on something to be on this show. Otherwise, we're gonna do the opposite of a breathalyzer. If you are not inebriated or under the influence or something, you can't get in. Sorry about that. All right, so we got the Chief jumping in here as well. Chief, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. What if I'm under the influence of the Holy Spirit? Will that count?
I told you, man. It's a fucking green tea, black tea, coffee, cocoa, hot cocoa, something, but sugar. But the Lord is not enough.
Anyway,
yeah.
No, it was just a joke.
I know. No, but hey, listen. Did you catch the final press conference?
No, I did not. I was at the gym today and missed it, and I was working during the day, so I don't know what time it took place. I haven't really followed much of the precursor talking, jabbing, press conference, anything, because, you know, the fight is, to me, the fight sold itself just by being signed. We've wanted this fight for a long time. I don't need the rest of that. So, plus, these two are kind of boring. I don't care what might have happened today. For the most part, a lot of their press conferences, these guys don't have charisma. They're not Tommy Hearns, Ray Leonard. They're not Trinidad De La Hoya. It's not that they're not skilled. Their personalities are what are lacking compared to the guys before. So none of this other stuff of listening to Errol Spence talk all slow with his accent and Bud almost whispering into the microphone because he's a mellow-tone guy. I haven't paid attention to these very much. And if I missed something, then please let me know.
Well, it was just jawing at each other. The trainers, Derek James and Paul Mike were jawing. What's his name? Yeah, Crawford and Spence. But it wasn't just Crawford and Spence. It was every time Crawford or Spence would say something, their family members and entourage in the crowd, because it was close to the public, by the way, it was just to a certain amount of people were permitted. And, well, I'll give you an example of what was going on here. Just a visual. I'm not going to play the audio, but they were going at each other. And then see that? I think that's Spence. Yeah, that's Spence's entourage. They were going at Crawford. You see the woman, they're doing the talk, that shit sign. And there's, I don't know if you can see, well, you can't see it. Let me zoom in here, but there was an old man there in the back. I don't know if you guys can see in the upper right. There's a guy with his arms crossed. The second guy upper right next to a guy in red, he's got his arms crossed. I don't know if you can see it right over here. It's an Asian man. And you see there, he looks none too pleased by what he's saying. And I'm thinking maybe this is what he sees in the subway or something. I don't know, but it was, I mean, they have to do something to sell this fight because, like you said, Chief, it's sold to you because you're a hardcore boxing fan. But if they want to get those casuals, they really have to do something. But at the same time, they can't go overboard and start fighting each other because then it looks low class. So I think this was the right amount of tomfoolery required to hype people up for this fight. But like you said, the fight itself is appetizing enough for a lot of people. Now, allow me to read a super chat here from Amak. Shout out to Amak PvP for his contribution with the super chat. He said, Errol and Bud look like extras from The Walking Dead. Well, how about that? I mean, Chief, I don't know if you can, I'm sharing the screen here and you guys are going to have to look at what I'm sharing so you can, okay. This is how they looked. Now, well, this is a down angle. It's different angles, so they might look. Let me see if I can find a different angle. Well, how about here? How do you think they look here?
That hat does not make Spence look like he's, well hydrated. His face is definitely really sunken in there. In this picture right here you got right now, like you said, Bud's got the hoodie. Everything's dark. His face, I'm not gonna say it looks more sunken in than normal, but it's definitely lean. Oh yeah, Spence looks very dry. Like he's even lighter skinned than normal. Than my perception of this picture, he looks a little lighter than normal, almost slightly pale. And maybe I'm reading too far into it, but with him saying this is his last fight, no matter what, at 147, this one might have been too much of a cut for him, especially because he's been off for a year.
Right.
He was off for a year. He fought Ugas. He was off for a year, and now he's got this fight. So
might be, man. Exactly.
He's looking a little, which goes into what Gonzalo's saying, that he thinks that Errol Spence might get into a big lead, and then the next thing you know, like what happened in the Danny Garcia fight, he's gonna drop a step because he's not gonna have the energy, and that's when Bud will take over by Gonzalo's prediction. By looking at his face, I can see that being a possibility.
Absolutely. I think this is going to play a big factor, man. And I think this time it will, because a lot of people think that, usually a lot of people think that it plays a factor, the whole Wayne thing, and sometimes it doesn't, but I think this time it just might. Amok says, Spence looks like he lives in a desert. Brown Mexican says, tomorrow the skeleton comes out. Shadow Combat says, Spence looks Japanese. Somebody else said, hold on a second, where is it? There were more comments here. Well, yeah, that's what people are saying, essentially. Yeah, man, I'm telling you that Crawford and Spence both looked a little off there. And, Bucho made a good point. He said, these guys are killing themselves to make weight. They're sitting there in the press conference, and every time they said something, the crowd started screaming, hooting and hollering. It must have felt like they were in the fifth circle of hell or something. But hopefully they come in shape and not too dried up, too emaciated. So we'll see what happens, man. I'm trying to look at some of the comments here. Anyway, we'll continue on with the show here. We got to get to the clips here. Essentially, we're going to watch the clips that I watched in a previous video. It's going to be just a rehash of that. So you guys jump in whenever you want to. This was the first point here, which says for Crawford, do not load up. Because like I said, with those big, long orangutan arms of his, he tends to see those wallops. They're very effective with power. But if he starts getting in there and throwing those while trading with Spence, it could be trouble for him, because he tends to get a little unhinged when he trades. And we're gonna take a look at more clips later on. But what do you guys think about that? Should he be reserved early on, not get too wild?
I don't know, and the reason why I don't know is because he could afford to fall behind against Sean Porter and turn it back on in the fifth round and pull ahead in the fight. If I'm misreading Spence's weight situation, he may not be able to work his way back into the fight. If Spence is fine and doesn't wear out, and this isn't that big of a drain on him, or let's say it drains both of them to where it's mano-a-mano, they're both drained equally. By the time the second half of the fight comes into play, and you're behind against a guy like Spence, who is big and strong. I know I've got questions about his chin and everything else, but he is big and he is strong and he does know how to survive. If I'm correct, we've never seen him down, no matter how many times his legs buckle. Nothing touches the canvas but his feet. So I would start assertive. I would make my counters count, but I wouldn't necessarily put too much energy out. If that's what you're trying to say, I would agree. But he definitely needs to try and make sure that every round he's got something big, especially towards the body. A couple punches down there to make him count, so that when the fight goes on, he's already invested into the later rounds.
Well, one of the other points here is, and this we get more info here, is he needs to keep Spence moving. That's one of the callers also mentioned, that's going to be key to taking away Spence's jab. Now, as you can see in these clips, against Avanesian, for example, see how he spent a little time just standing. I think it was Avanesian. See how Avanesian wouldn't just barge in. He would get in there slowly, and then once he was inside, he would work, and Spence would just try to deflect, but then he would get hit. So can he afford to do this? Put the earmuffs on and just block Spence's shots? Or is that too dangerous for him?
I think that's a bit dangerous, knowing what kind of puncher Spence is when it comes. It's the Chavez type power. It wears you down. So you're willingly taking punches that are going to add up, assuming the fact you're going to be able to take all of them and dish your own out and come out on top, when that's actually Spence's game plan. Mm-hmm. I would not entertain that and give Spence an advantage. He thinks that's not just an advantage. You're letting him have his way. It's not the same situation because Valdez and Shakur Stevens, but Valdez let Shakur have his way. He let him win the foot battle, he let us get his jab going, and he let him set a pace. Well, after that, you're 3 steps down in the fight, and so now you've got to try and compensate. And this could end up being the same thing. If he stays in the pocket too long and Spence is able to throw those shots, if they're as debilitating as they have been against Danny and other guys, they're going to hit on his arms, they're going to hit on his ribs, they're going to hit on other parts, and that could wear Bud down. I would move and make Spence reach for punches, especially since you got the longer arms. And when he overcommits, that's when I would counter.
Well said, because that is essentially, as we're going to see later on, and I think it's one of the obvious points too, is that Spence needs to set his feet and throw his combinations and get those combinations in to wear Spence down. The feeling going into this fight is that Spence will not be able to outbox Terence Crawford. Now, maybe he can, but that jab needs to be pumping, and if Crawford stays on the move, that jab might not be that much of a factor. Gonzalo, jump in whenever you want, but here I'm just... yeah.
I'm thinking, initially, from a fan's point of view, and from the outside looking in, I would just say, Terence Crawford, stick to the straighter punches. You got the longer arms. Don't hook. You know how they say don't hook with the hooker? Mm-hmm. Freaking Errol Spence will try to get you with the hooks and the body shots. But I would definitely not be scared, and I would test out his power to see what he's hitting me with, and try to catch him with a good counter to test Errol Spence's chin too. Yeah, because Errol Spence don't want to be running in there foolishly either. He gave Mikey a lot of respect. Think about that. A smaller guy, he gave him a lot of respect. And as Chief has said in the past, when guys bring the power, he's not necessarily going in there to fucking put the pressure and beat you up with all that confidence.
That's right.
So it's one of those things. You cannot fight scared. You got to see what Errol Spence bringing to the table. Same thing for Terence Crawford. And then man up, because I don't think these dudes are going to fall within a few rounds. So I wouldn't be fighting like necessarily that scared. Especially Terence Crawford, since I don't think Errol Spence got that one punch. I'm going to blast you out of there in 2-3 rounds.
And you know what? The other thing is that the feeling going into this fight, and we touched on that last night, was that Crawford cannot win a decision. That's what some people are saying. Some people are saying that there might be some hijinks afoot, some devilry, some shadow play, and that if Crawford goes the distance, and even if he gets a better work accomplished in the ring, they're gonna take the fight away from him. And so you know how what they always say, the stereotype is Vegas judges like the aggressor. They like the guy that comes forward. And if Crawford spends too much time doing what he did against Postal, which was moving, however effective it might have been to nullify Postal's offense, might not really impress the judges in this fight. And he doesn't really have to run, because as you can see here against Avanesian, the footwork he displayed, although a little slower than we're accustomed to seeing, was enough to keep Avanesian turning as well. So we'll see what he can do. Now, I tell you, to me, the peak Crawford footwork performance wasn't against Postal, because that he moved way too much in that one, but it was against Beltran. Beltran was in his peak. He was coming hit his peak, and he was coming off a string of victories, and he just couldn't pin Crawford down. Here are the clips. This is the performance that told me that Crawford could box as well. I mean, he'd outboxed Ricky Burns and that Ukrainian guy and even Gamboa in the latter part of the fight. But this is the first fight where he actually spent most of the time off the back foot retreating. And look at his movement here. It was smooth. And I mean, if he can channel some of this for the for the Spence fight, then he might be able to take away Spence's jab.
Yeah, I like those moves that Terence Crawford shows, especially on the Avenisium clip. He's doing it here too. When he spins you out and around, like he kicks that back leg and pivots. It's not like a 45 degree, it's like a 90 degree, even like greater. He turns you. I'm not going to say 180 degrees, but that he's changing that angle hard. It's a hard turn.
It's absolutely right. That's what.
So in other words, he's facing you, and you don't have the privilege of facing him on your terms, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right, man. Look at those. Those are some wide pivots, and then he incorporates head movement, and then pivots away via those head movements or off those head movements. And as you can see there, he uses his hand to control his opponent too and keep him turned like right there. Spin. And I think that's actually spinning. I think that's illegal, but the referees nowadays they don't seem to know much about. Now that's a female referee, by the way. So make of that what you will. But Gonzalo, also if we rewind here, we see that indeed if you keep Spence turning, because see he tends to overcommit when he punches. See how he leans in. And he also he kind of telegraphs the shot because he starts leaning in first. And so a guy with good reflexes and competent footwork might be able to take that away. And Garcia has good footwork. He's just not as quick, and he prefers to stand his ground to counter. But you see here, whenever he did move, he managed to shut down a lot of what Spence was doing. So you think Crawford, if Garcia was able, you think that if Garcia was able to do it, Crawford can?
Well, maybe because, for sure, because Terence Crawford is 5'8". He's shorter by 3 inches. So he's maybe a tad taller than Danny Garcia, but he got the longer arms. And going back to what I mentioned yesterday, the false sense of distance. Errol Spence might think, I'm taller, I'm leaning in, I'm going to touch him, and he can't touch me. But when your head's protruding forward and thinking, because I'm the taller dude encroaching upon him, that I got my jab where I'm hitting him once again. No, but the Terence Crawford got the longer arms. He's gonna be surprised. His head's gonna be hanging on the inside, where he's gonna get popped back. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's an excellent point right there. Though that's when the arm reach advantage might come into play. By the way, Straight G, shout out to Straight G in the chat, says that spinning is legal, but spinning means just to clarify, because I don't know if we're getting confused a little bit here. Spinning means when you get close to a guy, you put your arm around his waist and you twist him because you can control him easier doing that. And I believe that's illegal. I mean, pivoting is legal, but if you're using your arm and putting it around a guy and using it to keep turning him, I believe that's illegal. But anyway, we'll check that out later. I'm a little confused right now with that and watching these clips at the same time. Let's so you're right, Gonzalo, that those pivots are wide, and then on top of that, the reach here, like you said, he uses his arms to control his opponent. And against Avenisian, he wasn't moving too much, like as much as he did against Postal, but he was doing some good pivots. Now here, this is just Spence, how he's a little open for the 1-2-1, like right there. Because he does what a lot of southpaws, and Tank Davis has the same flaw. He see when to get away from the right, he just tries to block it and roll with it towards his right hand, but then he has to roll back towards his left before the other punch comes. And as you can see here, he wasn't quick enough. So what do you think, Gonzalo? If Crawford stays in the orthodox, whether he stays in the orthodox position or southpaw, do you think he should? That's the one to go with, the 1-2-1.
That's a good combination. Don't quite know, but yeah, definitely, I would give it a try.
Now, I wanted to ask you here, for example, the in the Sean Porter fight, a lot of people, I've mentioned this before on Twitter, when they say that Crawford had an easier time with Porter, and the Spence fans go, nah, well, it's Spence went to war with him because he wanted to. he wanted to prove that he could beat him at his own game. If you watch the first couple of rounds of the Spence-Porter fight, you can see Spence backing up and trying to catch him with counters. And then afterward, that wasn't working out. And then he started saying, okay, now you're forcing me to get on the inside. That's the way I saw it. What do you remember from that fight? Because here you see that combination there. He was just standing there. Was he frozen, or maybe he just didn't care about the punching power and he decided to take it? Well, what do you make of that?
Well, I think he plants his feet, right? So he's susceptible to getting hit because he wants to plant his feet so he can land his shots. So he's inviting you to trade a lot of the times because in his mind he thinks he's the guy that's gonna beat you up and break you down. But I mean, for a pressure fighter, I mean, you run a lot of risk. It's not like, okay, I'm just gonna have my will with you.
You still there?
Yeah, BDA. Yeah, so it's a pressure fighter runs a lot of risk. You know, Julio Cesar Chavez at the lightweights, I'm always referencing him, but you gotta move your waist, man. Right? If you ain't moving your waist or doing something responsible, like in order to like not get caught all the time, you're always gonna run the risk of the other guy landing, obviously, because you're standing right in there.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
That's basically it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right, man. But it's interesting that's the way some people interpret the Porter fight. That, well, Spence didn't mind getting hit, which, I mean, he was getting hit with some. I know Porter's not a big puncher, but I wouldn't allow a guy to hit me because whether a guy's a big puncher or not, if he's snapping your head back, they have a degree of hurt that you don't want to keep taking too much of those because that starts hurting your back. So either Spence couldn't stop him, or either he's a bit dumb and he just let him punch himself. That way, some people are saying, or maybe it's a bit of both. I don't know. We shall see. What else? I have to rewind here. But that's the thing, though. Some people are saying, okay, here's my question to you, and we're going to watch this because, as I said, that, like here, for example, this is some of the early rounds from Spence Porter, and you see that he could, when he wanted to, back up, and he had some success backing up and catching the shorter Porter with some counters. And what happens if he starts trying to box Crawford from the outside? Because a lot of people believe that he won't be able to do that. But as you can see here, Crawford's not... He's got some flaws himself. Hold on a second. Not these clips, obviously. We're going to see some clips from Terence Crawford getting a little wild. Like here, for example. When he trades, see that? He keeps his chin up in the air. See that? He's very used to... And then here against Benavidez, he was getting outboxed from the outside in large spots too. Now, of course, Benavidez is quicker than Spence, and he's a righty. But what do you think? Do you think Spence could get into a fencing match with Crawford and have success?
Well, it's interesting when you were speaking about he couldn't keep Sean Porter off him in the inside, or what was the plan there really? Because I mean, he's got punching power. Mm-hmm. Same thing with, and then I'll jump into what you're saying now. Same thing with Mikey Garcia. Look, with Mikey Garcia, he was having more success fighting him from the outside. When Mikey Garcia got on his chest, that's how Mikey Garcia was able to survive. Now, I think Errol Spence might not be so much, now that I really think of it, like so much of a like inside get up on your chest. He might need a little separation, kind of like a mid-range to the inside, but not necessarily chest to chest. On the outside, he's not that bad. He's pretty good. That's how he was able to get Mikey Garcia and have some success with other fighters, because he's got a good straight jab.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. Yeah, obviously he's taller. He's got the shorter arm reach, but still, I mean, you can bend your knees a little bit and like and lean a little forward, and that'll give you a little bit more extension on your reach compared to the guy that's a little bit shorter. Yeah, he got the longer arms, but he can't like lean into his punches as much as Errol Spence can, because he's got the wider shoulders and his 5'11". No, so it'll kind of be like more equal as far as like the arm reach, and depending on obviously the timing and the speed, boxing skills, he can beat him at the game too.
Well, I mean that's where we're getting to the whole reach thing. Now, allow me to stop this here for a second. If we go back to the statistics here and go to the reach, we see that Crawford has a reach advantage. He's listed as having a 74-inch reach advantage, whereas Spence has a 72-inch reach advantage. Now, those 2 inches might not look like much, but it depends on how the guy uses them. You know, that's what they always say, right? They say size doesn't matter; it's how you use it.
Man, if the taller man, BDA, he uses that bladed stance where that front leg is like more up, more forward, then obviously he gets more extension because he's taller. So he's kind of leaning in a little further, right? And the shorter man he's got the longer arms. It's 5'8", but he can't open his legs as wide, and if he does, he compromises other things while the taller man can.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. Now let's go to I want to read a couple of comments here from people. Let's see what people are saying about that. Brown Mexican says Crawford fought a worse Kell Brook. Shadow Combat says not trying to be mean, but Porter's punch technique is so ugly. When he's on the inside, it's not that bad. But yeah, there's something about him just jumping in. You saw what Ugas was able to do. Hey, Ugas was actually able to keep him more honest on the outside than Spence did. So that speaks volumes about the counter-punching ability. I mean, obviously, styles make fights, because then once Spence fought Ugas, he beat the crap out of him. But it's interesting that Ugas did manage to get Porter's respect. Stray G says maybe Brook was already damaged, but who knows? The Quack says Brook is Spence's best win. Crawford's was Postal's, in my opinion. Brook is Spence's best. Yeah, I mean, people forget about the Brook fight, because it was so long ago. It was about 7 years ago. Windy City says Ryan Garcia is going to be front row when Charlo gets KO'd by King Nello. Gato Genius says Spence is too slow. Garcia says Crawford's best win is Mean Machine. Pete says I really hate the way Crawford fights. I mean, there's something Wilder-esque about Crawford. When he fights the best opponents he's fought, when he's fought the best opponents he's faced, he's had to pull the wind out of his ass with his power. That's what I mean by Wilder-esque. He gives the rounds away, he loses rounds, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boom, he catches his opponent with something, and that's all she wrote. Straight G says, when Spence beat Porter, he displayed a lot of dog. Beat him at his own game, that's dog right there. Well, yeah, I mean, that's one way of saying it. What else here? Anyway, we'll get back to the phone call here, see what people are saying. But, Gonzalo, yeah, you brought up a good point there about how you use the reach as well. It's going to be very important here. That shouldn't go unmentioned right off the bat. What else are we talking about here? I'm looking at the predictions here as well, just for a little bit. Anyway, back to the film analysis here. You mentioned the jab, so I'm going to fast forward because I actually added something that I'd missed in the video that I'd done, and I added the jabs. And hold on, where is it? Hold on, we're going to have to wait here. It's almost over. All right, the story of the jab. Is it going to be the story of the jab for Errol Spence? Because the quicker shot he's got here, or the fastest shot he has that can match, or at least attempt to rival Crawford's speed advantage, is the jab. And Gonzalo was talking about that right off the bat right now. So might as well get into it. And I see we got Recognize jumping. Recognize, are you there?
What's going on, gentlemen?
What's up, Recognize? Thank you for jumping in.
Salute.
I'm sharing the screen here with you fellas so that you can see what we're watching. Let's go back to it here. The jab. Now, Spence's jab, and we even said in the comparative film analysis that he has a superior jab than Crawford's. And as you can see here against Kell Brook, Kell Brook is a better jabber than both Spence and Crawford. Indeed, when he fought Spence, he was out jabbing him, and when he fought Crawford, despite the short length of the fight, he was outboxing him as well. And here you can see that Spence managed to get his jab in there. So if he starts playing this game against Crawford, do you guys think he might be able to not only keep up with Crawford on the outside, but actually beat him on the outside?
Yes. We've seen him do it before. I know Mikey's not a great example because he's shorter, a lot shorter than Bud, and lighter. But it still doesn't take the fact that when he wanted to use the jab to control him, he did, because he understands that Mikey Garcia, even though he's a lot smaller, maybe, rushing him at the whole time, bringing the fight to him, gives Mikey Garcia his best chances to score points, maybe even land big punches.
Mm-hmm.
So Spence is definitely capable of being disciplined, using his jab to control the fight. It'll be a lot harder with Terence Crawford, I think, because of natural size and power and all that stuff. And you don't want to just keep doing one thing against Crawford. So, but he's definitely capable of doing that, controlling him with the jab on the outside.
Definitely could. He's got a good long jab, and that might nullify Crawford's so-called reach advantage and speed advantage. Or I should say the so-called speed advantage, because maybe there's not that much of a speed advantage at 35 years of age for Crawford. Now, that's the other thing, though. We were talking about how...
Yeah, 35, 33, it's not really a big difference.
You're right. You might be right. You might be right. Yeah, and the thing is, people were saying that Crawford, if he stays on the move, then he's going to be able to take away Garcia's... If Crawford moves around, he might be able to take away Spence's jab. But if he starts moving around too much, can he win the fight comprehensively by moving?
No. He's going to have to mix it up with Spence.
Gonzalo, do you concur with that? Do you think he can pull off a postal here? Will that be enough in Vegas with the PBC judges and the PBC event?
Sort of. Yeah, that's partly true. I mean, he can move, and if he snaps Errol Spence's head back more often, I mean, he's still got to land quality punches, in other words. It's not just back foot, and look as poor as he did against Postal. He's got to, be more... He's got to land things more often. Quality punches.
But that's the thing, though, is if, we were talking about that Spence tends to lean in too much, like here, for example. See how he leans in his whole body? Or he does it a little bit too much, the leaning in. Wouldn't you want, if you're Crawford, wouldn't you want to bait him to throw this type of shot so you can counter him?
Yeah.
So I suspect we might not see that much movement, right? That much side-to-side movement, bouncing. He might just limit it to pivots.
He should. That's what he should do against Crawford.
But that's
because when he leans in, he could set himself up to get caught with an uppercut to the body, to the top of the head. Something that he might not expect. It gets through because he's leaning in.
Yeah, again, the last guy that Spence fought that had a good jab was Kell Brook, or a superior jab, I should say. Crawford, we gave Spence the advantage in the jab when we did the comparative film and the comparative analysis, and I don't even know if Crawford can out jab him from the outside. He might be able to outquick him with every other shot, with the straight rear hand and all that, but jabbing, how do you think he's going to be able to take away that jab if he manages to do it?
I mean, I don't know, but I could see scenarios where he takes away the jab. I mean, look, I have a feeling he's going to fight from the orthodox stance. It's going to probably be his best stance to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And if he does that, then I think going in that he would be able to take away. He'll have moments where he could take away the jab, especially if Spence. The thing about these boxes, right? If you do something a little too often, then they could adapt to it. And I think from the orthodox stance that he can. There's a lot of ways he could take away the jab. He could come over with his jab. Just because he does it. One of the reasons why I give Spence the jab category over Crawford is because Crawford doesn't use it as much. Right. Crawford's trying to Crawford doesn't set up big shots with his jab. He just kind of throws combinations. He counters, and so yeah, Spence would have to be careful with that. So there's a lot of ways he could take away that jab. And he can step back a little bit, throw some combos of his own. He can go over his jab with his own jab. I think mainly from the orthodox stance. So yeah, that would be like going into the fight. That's the way I see Crawford having some success. If he's going to have success taking the jab away from him, that would be one of the ways.
Now that's the thing, though. Here you see Kell Brook against Spence, and Kell Brook managed to outbox Crawford as well. That's why I say he's a superior jabber from all this. If we're looking at this trifecta, but this, what he was doing here, the lean back counter. First of all, he had to take a couple of taps too as he leaned back. Like right there, he took a jab from Spence, but then he came back with his own. It takes a lot of energy too to be able to do a lot of concentration throughout 12 rounds, especially against a guy like Crawford who puts on a lot of pressure. That's the main question. Can Crawford throw these type of jabs?
We haven't seen him do it as consistent, but he might have to. He's probably gonna have to if it comes down to that. If the fight comes down to who has the better jab, Crawford's gonna have to do something that we're not used to seeing him doing. I want to say there's a fight that Crawford did use his jab really good. I just don't remember. I'm drawing a blank. Maybe you remember BDA, but I thought he used his jab good against someone in the lower weight class. But then again, that's the lower weight class,
Right. Well, I mean, when he fought Porter, he flashed that jab a little bit more. I mean, whenever he fought shorter guys, you could see that jab.
But yeah, that is a good point. He against Porter
now,
at 147.
One thing I do predict here that I'm gonna be able to see right off the bat is Crawford. Why do I keep confusing them? Although Crawford is not the jabber that Kell Brook is, he does use those long ass orangutan arms of his to control his opposition. And look at how Kell Brook was able to do it here. They were getting into that fencing match. He lands his jab, leans away, lazy hook there, but he places his arm around Spence and then uses it to just twist him around, push him around, makes him look like a drunk. This is how he was looking before he got into his car, by the way, before the accident, like that. Oh, hey, what's going on? And here's another clip here. You can see,
and we know Crawford could definitely do that. That's spin his opponent off the jab,
right?
Like a lazy jab. We know Crawford could do that.
Now, that's the thing. I was mentioning that I was showing some clips of Crawford doing that, where he places his arm around the waist of his opponent and then spins him. That's illegal, right? We were having doubts about that, but that's yeah,
it is illegal.
Okay, I was just curious about that. I was getting confused. Now here he.
I mean, it's one of those things that like it's not super illegal, but it's like, yeah, you can't do that. Really, the referee's supposed to tell you, don't push off your opponent. It's boxing,
right? Because
you got to.
You can just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and it allows you to control the opponent nonstop. Now, here you can see. Okay, we go back to what we're talking about, because before you got here, recognized, we actually fast forward to the jab for a reason. That's because we're talking about that. Can Spence outbox Crawford from the outside? And Crawford, whenever he's forced to go at his opponent, he tends to get a little wild. Now here we see Spence counterpunching Porter a little bit. And here we see Crawford, whenever he gets into exchanges, tends to get a little bit unhinged. And see here against Benavidez. Benavidez did some, again, he's way taller than Crawford. And I think he's taller than Spence even, and quicker.
Yeah.
So it's a different style. So, but as you can see here, he did manage to outfence Crawford there a little bit. And see how look at how Crawford comes in whenever he starts trading. See that? Look at how he throws the left and starts leaning in with his chin up in the air, his right hand down. If he gets into an exchange with Crawford, is that a good idea to be doing this type of faulty technique here?
Absolutely not. We know that Crawford, Spence throws good hooks. You know what I'm saying? So you definitely don't want that to happen. He throws accurate hooks too, mid-range. Even if he has to go back a little bit, once you get that mid-range, he can let off that hook. And if he's kind of like wide open the way he is against some of these other fighters, you can get clipped with a big shot coming in.
Well, I mean, look at this.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like Errol Spence, he keeps his elbows pinned more like to the side of his ribs, so he throws straight punches. He's more like defensively responsible. He keeps it tight. But Crawford is more situationally aware. But he also makes but he makes mistakes. He's got the longer arms and he throws wider punches, gets sloppy, but at the same time, yeah, he's more sloppy, but he's got a little bit of a quicker brain on the fly as far as like thinking. But when the other guy is maybe like a little bit more slower mentally, but it's just got it so ingrained in his boxing style that everything is tight already, he's kind of doing half the work there already. So it's one of those things, man. It's hard to tell which I would give the advantage to.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because if indeed Crawford can take away Spence's jab right off the bat, then Spence is going to have no choice. He's going to have to barge in and make him work on the inside or outwork him on the inside and get some bombs in there to wear the older man down. If, like I said, that's a prediction. If Crawford takes away the jab early, Spence better come up with plan B, man, because Crawford's going to might have a field day and the advantage going in there. But again, it's when he's trading, talking about Crawford, that's one of the reasons why I don't have him pound for pound number one or even in the top three, because A, his opposition hasn't been the best, and then on top of that, his technique. I mean, regardless of the pound for pound placement, I don't see pound for pound skills whenever he starts attacking. He's a little bit too hittable and a little bit too unhinged. He relies on those reflexes. And here, for example, see how he just starts jumping in. And, you know, when one of his tells is that he sticks his tongue out whenever he loses a sequence. And he was sticking that tongue out a lot against Benavidez. Like here, for example.
Yeah, he did that with John Molina. John Molina, yeah? That's his name? Remember, like, their fight?
Uh-huh.
He got close to big shots, I want to say, like, in the earlier rounds. He was trying to do that, you know, that spin-off from the jab. But he left himself wide open, and I think John Molina caught him with a big shot upstairs. And he did the tongue movement thing. And he looked a little buzzed in that situation. He does have to be careful. He does have to, even though he's like, you know, he's more elusive and he could be aggressive because of that. He also leaves himself wide open for big shots. And this is going to be Errol Spence. You know, that doesn't mean that if Errol Spence catches him one time with a big shot, it's over, you know. Let's not over-exaggerate that, but you just don't want to be making those mistakes all the time against a guy who's a big puncher like him.
Yeah, now the Quags in the chat says Crawford is wide open for counters. Spence will stick in the pocket and with him and trade. That might be that's dangerous for Spence too, but he might not have any choice. And again, like I said, when you make Crawford have to jump in, he jumps in there with his chin up in the air, hands down, unprotected. Now, some people could say, wow, look at that. He took a big shot. He got rocked, but he didn't go down or anything. But Benavidez, I mean, let's face the facts. Benavidez lost to Mauricio Herrera, and then he went on to give Crawford the business. So I know it's different styles, but you never know. Maybe Spence has more success on the outside than that most people would give him credit for. I don't know. I kind of doubt it. I'm not sure he will, but it's worth a try early on.
I think the theme is going in is that Crawford would more likely outbox Spence, and Spence would more likely win by stoppage, right? But I think in reality, I'm not saying that the first scenario isn't true, but I think in reality that it's 50-50 that it could happen the other way also. I think that Spence can outbox Crawford, and Crawford can't stop Spence.
Right. Yeah, that's
both are going to be really hard to do.
Yeah, that seems to be the one of the narratives coming in, and we'll see which one This is proved and which one works. Also, one of the things that we were talking about was Crawford needs to work the body against Spence. And this was one of the big things that made me scratch my head because, as you're going to see later on, well, even in certain clips here, whenever he gets hit to the body, especially with the right hand, he tends to double over. And it's quite apparent. Now, I know people always say, well, nobody likes it to the body, which is true. But some people react worse to it than others. And Spence has quite a big tell whenever he does get hit to the body. He's got a very narrow waist. And I think that might have something to do with it. And in the video that I made, I pointed that out. And the clips that we were watching are in that video. And I mentioned, look, initially, like for here, for example, I thought, well, let me slow it down to see if he's actually leaning away from the shot. Because, you know, Lomachenko does that. Whenever a guy goes to the body with him, he scoops up his ass and gets out of the way. But then here you can see he gets hit first and then he doubles over, meaning the punch is causing him to do that. And I pointed that out in the video, and still I got about 5 or 6 people going, nah, man, he does that to take the sting away from the shot. You don't know what you're talking about. I was like, fucker, I'm showing you the video here. He's getting hit and then he's doing it. So what the fuck is going on here?
That's just my voice. They don't want to admit that there's a chink in their guy's armor.
I mean, wouldn't you?
Yeah, he does. He does bend. See, I said this a long time ago, though, because Chris Algieri in the second round hit him with some shots and made him bend over. And people said the same thing to me. Oh, no, he's rolling with the shot. Well, first of all, you can bend away from a shot, from a body shot, but you're never really rolling with a body shot. You know what I mean? You can only go so far. If the body shot's going to land, you can only go so far to avoid it. It's going to connect. You know, that's the part of your body that doesn't move as much. You know, it's connected to your legs. Your legs are grounded. You're not going to go far. You can try and block it with your forearms. You can lean a little bit away from it, especially if they're going for the liver. You can lean a little bit towards the side where it's coming from, so your rib cage is a little bit closer to your hip to try and protect a little bit. But that's about as far as you're going to get for dodging a body shot. You know?
Exactly.
And anyway, that being said, in addition to that, you're showing the Danny Garcia where he hits him with a straight right, and that shot right there too. Yeah, right there.
You know, if Danny would have stepped into that a little bit more and put himself in position to come upstairs, with a lead left, with his lead left, with a hook, could have been, you know, he could have probably rocked his ass to the floor, you know.
But that would require him throwing more than one punch at a time.
Right, and that's what I was saying in that fight. It was like, dude, like I don't want to say like he just took it easy, is because we've seen Danny Garcia fight like this. But those opportunities were there in many instances in the fight. I'm like, man, if Danny could throw more punches, you know, because I know
I really saw Danny throw a lot.
I know he can. He's a boxer.
Porter. At welterweight, the only time I really saw him throw a lot was against Porter. He was very selective against. He was too selective against Peterson.
Do that, right, Jay? Porter kind of makes fighters do that shit. He makes them throw a lot more punches. Yeah.
Well, can I say something about that fight? I remember that the episode after, you know, the post-fight episode we did for Garcia Spence, that's Danny Garcia, by the way. I mentioned the fact that if Garcia would have thrown more, maybe he would have had more success. And then I remember that somebody brought up the punch stats. According to punch stats, he threw 700 shots, which is 7 less than Spence's 707. Which I rewatched the whole fight 3 days ago. And I think what the CompuBox people were counting were a lot of throwaway shots from Garcia, because he certainly did not throw 700 hard shots. I think this is one of those instances where the CompuBox people might have been seeing something else. I don't know, but he was active in that fight. And you know why he was active, Garcia was? Because Spence made him. If you rewatch that fight, especially the first 6 rounds, Spence was putting a lot of pressure. I thought he was going to stop Garcia the way he was going. And then he slowed down, which he cannot do against Terence Crawford. He needs to keep that same pace, 120 miles per hour, 12 rounds. The biggest fight of his life. There's no, you know, you can, like I forget which trainer once told his fighter, you can be tired. I was Buddy McGirt, but when he told Antonio Tarver against Roy Jones, listen, you can be tired tomorrow. You can be tired tomorrow all you want, but today you got to fight. And that's what it's going to be with these fellas here.
Garcia was going a lot to the body, but I didn't see him go a lot to the liver. He was basically, he's a right-hander, so he's basically throwing. He was throwing to the kidneys more often, And I don't think that was really damaging Errol Spence. But with Terence Crawford, he hits harder to the body. The way he knocked out Indongo, I mean, that's a lower class, but some of the clips you were showing there and some of what I've seen on my own, that dude really punches through the target. And I'm thinking, is Errol Spence really going to want to be as consistent? Because he is a more consistent body puncher as he usually shows to be against a guy that would against a fighter that would land his own punches and make you want to like not keep throwing as consistently to the body. With him, we saw with Canelo Golovkin. They're both good body punchers, but when it came to those guys, obviously they kind of dialed it back, and you don't want to like also be open upstairs. So that might diminish Errol Spence's freaking punch volume. What I'm thinking.
Interesting.
Definitely the body attack. If he goes towards the body, leaves himself open, and Bud counters him up there with some good shots, he'll be more reluctant to go to the body. He won't be reluctant to throw punches. He'll just probably revert more to jabs and straight punches and not throw as many hooks. Or if he does start to throw to the body, he'll probably bend at the waist with his hand with the high guard, so that to not give as much of a target. If he's standing upright but trying to torque his body to really get those the power into those shots, and he gets countered, like I said, he'll probably just bend at the waist instead, and he won't have as much torque on the shots, but his head will be protected.
Yeah, that's a ripe possibility right there for success. Shout out to Anthony Lopez, by the way, for his contribution with the super chat. He says, shout out to Mr. BDA and everyone else on the panel putting in that work this week. Best boxing podcast. Well, I appreciate it. We appreciate it, Anthony Lopez. Thank you for your contribution and for the kind words. And hopefully people are enjoying this film analysis that we're bringing you here. And just a little breakdown. Not necessarily, it's not the most in-depth film analysis, but it is something that's interesting because we can put video onto what we're talking about here when it comes to success for both fighters. And again, these body shots here, there was one that Chief emphasized. It was a slow motion one. Here, this one. I mean, this is as clear as day. He takes the shot and then it drives him back. See that?
Yep.
It's like he ate some bad jalapenos or something. So, I mean, when people tell me, like, no, in that, it's like sometimes you show, as I can remember, when I showed people the 20 instances in which Shakur Stevenson low-blowed Conceição, and they're telling me, no, those are borderline, and you can clearly see they're not. It's like, man, I don't want to deal with you people when you can't even, when I show you the evidence and you still can't admit it.
Why is he throwing borderline punches 20 times? Why? Okay, let's just give you the argument. It's borderline. Why you keep going to the border?
I mean, he didn't mean it.
Why aren't you trying to hit flesh?
Hey, now here,
why are you aiming closer and closer to the groin each time, regardless of, even if it's legal? Why are you consistently going back to the borderline of a potential low blow? Because when you're going to the borderline that much, you're going to hit low eventually, because the guy's going to move a certain way. Happened with Chavez and Randall. Chavez was throwing towards the borderline. Randall went up and leaned back, was on his toes, and the shot ended up hitting him in the groin. I don't believe it was intentional. That particular one, I'm not saying none of them were. Chavez shot straight, and unfortunately had already thrown a few others that were probably intentional, and it cost him a point in a round. He got knocked down. If you're going to go towards the border, eventually you're going to stray off target.
I don't like how you mentioned Chavez and then you kept saying border, like sending him back to the border. It's like, I don't know, that's racist.
Yeah, in hindsight, that might have been there may have been a better way to put that.
No, I'm kidding.
Is what you're saying, BDA? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like he needed to put him in a cage at the detention center. It's like, whoa, come on, man. No, but
well,
hey, listen.
Okay. Listen. That's one thing I wanted to bring up too.
Who built the cages, Joe? Who built the cages, Joe?
Hey, by the way,
what I want to say too, BDA, is that that's another thing Terence Crawford better be careful for. It'll be interesting how they officiate this fight. You know, that's another thing too. Spence goes slow a lot, and I think that's intentional. You know, I'm not in his head, but that they look intentional a lot of times. He likes to hit you in your thighs, your pelvic area. He's a brutal. He has brutal intentions when he's going to the body, and it's not all legal.
Yeah, he's into some ball busting BDSM type stuff, man. I would be curious, just from a criminal profiling perspective, to see his internet history, his porn history, to see what he's into, and I bet you there's some ball busting in there. Now, I want to.
On a serious note, he doesn't. I'm sorry. Go ahead, BDA.
Well, I am being serious, number one, and number two, just real quick, there is an instance here where you see here. This is one of the few instances where he is leaning away from the shot first. See that? But that's in the 8th round.
Yeah.
That's after he ate that's after 8 rounds of eating this body shot. So just wanted to show at least one example of where maybe, there is some doubt about whether the shot was doubling him over. But that we showed about 6 or 7 others where.
See how Danny doesn't follow up with anything? Look, he doubles him over, right? He makes him bend. He makes him bend over, but he's not aware that he could throw another shot.
He can't throw a left to the liver. I only see him throw one. He's throwing some to the pit of the stomach, which is good, but to the kidneys. I mean, not necessarily the kidneys, but to the right side of the body.
I'm outside looking in. I'm outside looking in. I'm outside looking in. I'm just thinking that the natural order, when you punch somebody to the body and you make them bend over, is to follow it up with your opposite hand. So if I catch you get what I'm saying? It's just but again, I'm outside looking in. I'm not in the ring with him. Maybe he sees something else.
He puts himself out of balance and squares up a lot against Spence because it's the southpaw versus orthodox, and Spence is winning the foot position battle. So when he was opening himself up to try and be able to land with the right hand more efficiently, and when you do that, you usually square up because then your right hand's not as far back. In doing so, he wasn't in position to get a lot of leverage on the hook. And on top of that, I don't think he saw the opening for the hook very much against the southpaw.
You know what? It's interesting.
And there's also there's fighters that automatically already know how to double up punches to the body. Like Errol Spence does it. He gets back on balance. He'll belch you with one, then the next, because it takes a lot of time to develop how to punch and do that. Double up on your punches because it takes balance to generate the power, right? So if you don't got it, sometimes you don't got it. You can't throw a kidney and the liver shot in tandem. And obviously, when you're in real time, when you're fighting, when punches are coming back the opposite way, it becomes even harder.
One of the funniest narratives I heard going into a boxing fight, I got to go back a little bit, is when Errol Spence was getting ready to fight Sean Porter, and Spence fans were so gassed up. They thought that he was just going to go in there and knock him out. And then the fight turned out to be close, like most of us on the panel thought it would be. Okay, a lot of us on the panel going into that fight, we predicted a good fight, and it was going to be super competitive. Then the narrative after the fight was Spence could go in there. Spence wanted to give the fans a great fight. That's why the fight was close, and it was super aggressive on his part. He could have outboxed him. It's like, dude, that's not what you were saying going into the fight.
Right.
Yeah, I remember
that.
Not only
that,
that's not what you said. That
we watched
he's gonna
you try and fail. We watched you try to push Sean Porter off and you couldn't. We watched you try to put your head in his chest and you got hit.
Well, can I say something about?
Try and drive him back and he drove you back. We watched you attempt this and it didn't work.
And here's another thing. This whole idea that he could have outboxed him. It was like, dude, did you watch the fight? He gave him no choice. He had to fight. He didn't give him a choice. He was up in his chest. He couldn't use his jab to keep him on the outside. He landed jabs, don't get me wrong, but he couldn't use it to control him. He had to fight. And he held himself up well in that fight. And he won. But that it was going to be this super blowout, and and that the reason why it wasn't was because he, let's switch the narrative of he could have just easily outboxed him. Both of them were wrong. That's why I say going into this fight, I think a lot of people might be wrong on both ends. Like Spence might outbox him, okay, and win that way, and Crawford might knock him out for the win. You know what I'm saying? Like those things can happen.
I want to go back to a bunch of points you guys just made because you made a lot of good ones. Number one, when we were talking about how Garcia was hitting Spence with body shots and not following up. That's something that happens a lot with a lot of opponents from Errol Spence. That's because this generation of welterweights, although it's good, is not the best. I think people are overrating it. Number two, that becomes apparent when you see the opposition, the fact that there's not a lot of good combination punchers out there. One of the few combination punchers that Spence fought was this guy, Sean Porter. And he was able to land a lot of combos. Now, I gotta give Spence credit too. The reason why a lot of people don't want to throw combos against him is because he hits hard. And he's a body puncher, and people don't want to be in the vicinity of his body shots. Sean Porter, however, had a lot of balls, a lot of hand speed, punches in bunches, and he made Spence just do this. Cower down, put his hands up, and took a shot. Now, here, look at this. See that? Here he took body shots, and he bent over. This isn't an outside long-range punch that you can just lean away from. This is indicative that this is his reaction whenever he gets hurt to the body. He bends over. Because see, what was the point of bending over here? You're still going to get hit with body shots. Even what you're supposed to do in this scenario, if you want to block body shots, the only thing you can really do is get lower. Unless you want to be dirty and clinch. So look at this. Left hook, ooh. And it made him bend over and buckle his knees a little bit there, it seemed too. So Crawford,
he got him in that exchange. He got him, like he won that exchange clearly, and he won a lot of those in that fight. If you remember, BDA, he won a lot of those instances in that fight. I mean, listen, he just edged him out. In my opinion, I don't care how you score. If you scored a 7-5, Spence plus the knockdown, that's a narrow victory. I personally could have seen it 7-5 Porter or 6-6, and you got to give the edge to Spence because he scored the legal knockdown. It was a knockdown. So
I scored
that Errol Spence.
Hold on, guys. One at a time.
Go ahead, Gunter. Go ahead, Gunter.
Yeah, okay. I'm noticing that Errol Spence, when the opponent is throwing, he spends the whole time blocking. He will never let his hands go when the opponent is throwing. I hadn't noticed that. That's something to think about, man. Now, obviously, he puts his hands up, so he blocks a lot of them. But he doesn't dare to, open up when the opponent is letting his hands go. So one thing to consider is Terence Crawford's going to sneak in some punches because, obviously, you're not covering all the bases when you're blocking up. You're expecting to block where you think the punch is coming. But if Crawford does that spin move on you and he punches hard with the both hands, oh man, dude, that's gonna be disaster for Errol Spence.
Like Mayweather, and they don't fight that much alike. Don't get me wrong, but like Mayweather, Spence likes to take his turn. He won't. Juan Manuel Marquez, I think, was a better counterpuncher than Floyd because he would wait for you to throw a shot, roll with it, and come back. And Floyd would usually not throw a counter shot unless the coast was clear. So Marquez would take the chance of I'm gonna roll the dice and use this counter even though I might get hit back in return because the counter punch I'm gonna do is gonna be big. Spence doesn't do that very much. I won't say he doesn't do it at all, but he doesn't do it very much because he's too busy coming forward to put himself in position to roll with the shot and counter back. And like Gonzalo was saying, he puts his hands up and then he kind of waits his turn. And if you fight a counterpuncher, especially if Bud's the one going to end up controlling the pace, which I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if he does, then that's going to throw Errol off a big time because he's going to have his hands up. He's going to be coming forward and not necessarily throwing shots, trying to avoid getting hit with any counter shots.
Well, you know what?
One question, BDA, real quick.
Yes.
Do you have any clips of the low blows?
No, not here. I can pull up a documentary that I made, and I do document that. I can show it later if you want.
I'll use your show. I don't know if we were covering it.
No, well, I'll pull it up. But I just want to point out this too before, because one of the other good points you guys had made was about the one punch at a time thing. And here I show some clips of Crawford countering. Well, not here. Hold on. It's going to come up. It's Crawford countering to the body, which is one of the keys here. He has to work Spence's body as well because, like I said, Spence has a thin body. Look at this. Here's against Sean Porter. You'll notice he counters with 2 shots, 3 shots at a time. Well, no, excuse me. Here is, here, for example. like right there. See how he's countering with punches in bunches. Here's against Evanesian, going to the body with combos too. And that's what he needs to do. Now, granted, he's never fought Errol Spence, so I don't know if he's gonna suffer from the same affliction that other Spence opponents suffer, which is that they don't throw combos. But he needs to go to the body. Here you see him working the body against Benavides. Long body. There was a lot of work. And here's he's sparring Carlos Adames. Now, I know it's just sparring, but Carlos Adames got off to a big start against Crawford, who'd already sparred about 4 rounds. Keep in mind also that Adames is a middleweight, whereas Crawford is a welterweight. And what Crawford was doing here was countering with body shots to slow the bigger, almost even faster guy down. And it really shows you that he can fight on the inside, but it's just that he controls the fight from the outside that he doesn't really have to. So here he hits an uppercut. Well, he actually kind of rode with it, rolls with the follow-up right, and then as he dips down, rolling away from it, counters with an uppercut to the body, and that sort of makes Adames fall back a little bit. And then see that just a little throwaway shot upstairs, like right there. And then, boom, another uppercut right in the plexus to take away the guy's speed. And he did take away Adames' speed, by the way. Adames started out quickly and then slowed down in there. And I'd have to assume that it's because of the body shots. And also this whole inside fighting here with this short type of punches like this, that always fucks me over, man. I've never really been able to master that. Look at that. So if he can, maybe, hey, that's the other thing. I said that if he takes away Spence's jab, it's going to be a long night for Spence. If he takes away his inside fighting, I guess it's over right there, man. But we shall see.
Terence Crawford is a good body puncher too, man. I'm noticing that because he's a shorter dude, so he's sitting a little lower, and he got the long arms. If he's not necessarily picking the arms up, he's already in prime position to throw the body shots. Now, I usually don't say this, but when you got the longer arms, sometimes you can find the space too around your opponent's elbow because you can lean in a certain angle to where you can punch around him. And Terence Crawford with the long arms, he's not only touching you, he's driving the punch and piercing your body through and through. He gets a lot of extension on the punch. So he's a real good body puncher.
Yeah, he turns into those body really well.
Yeah, the clips are gonna come up later here of him going to the body, but he's gonna want to take away, like here this is where the Crawford body clip started. And look at that, see how he counters to the, I mean, that's what I think all he should do early on, just counter to the body. Because it's gonna take away Spence's stamina. And I don't know if Spence really doesn't have that good a stamina. I'm looking for the low blow clips.
Well, if he counters to the body, most of his counter punches are going to the body. It's definitely going to be a good investment for later in the fight, especially if, like what we were saying at the beginning, doubling down, biting the bullet to try and make weight. You know, if he's really struggling more than he's letting on. Like I said, I know he's a lighter skinned guy, but he looked pale in that picture you put up. If he's really strong, I don't know if that's a real word, but if he's really like dehydrated and everything else, then it's going to be really behoove Bud that if when he gets these counter shots in, really dig him into the body. One thing, you put it out there and you're showing some of it. These aren't body shots necessarily from Ugas. Ugas did not have a hard time landing good body shots against Spence, and he's slower and doesn't hit as hard. So I know I'm got Crawford glasses on to thinking this is, going to be his fight. And I know that Spence is a big guy that's going to be able to throw some wrenches in Bud's system. And he's got a better corner to give him advice in between to adjust. But when I'm looking at all this film, all these guys that don't hit as hard and don't have as high a boxing IQ, they're having success against Spence in multiple situations in their fights. It's just making me lean more and more towards Bud.
Interesting. I mean, it could be the other way too. Some of the things flaws that we were seeing from Crawford, but there's a lot of red flags for Spence. Put it this way: there's more red flags on Spence right now than there are on Crawford. Now, you mentioned that you wanted to see that low blows. I think this is where I was documenting the low blows. Well, this is just a recap of the early rounds. Let's see if there you go. Let me make the page Yeah, let me just zoom in here if I can. It's freezing a little bit. Why is this lagging? Give me 2 seconds here.
Yeah, I
So
thought it was
many,
me, BDA.
no,
Kind
I
of
got too
lagging a
many.
bit.
Yeah, I got too many things open, I think. Okay, here. Let's see if I can slow it down. Look at this. Well, that's on the belt line, to be fair. But then it starts getting worse. Like right there.
That was such a good fight, man.
Well, I was mainly asking to see if they had a compilation of him because the Ocampo fight, right after he got stunned, he threw a left uppercut right to the balls.
Oh, look at this.
Oh,
I know he's been.
called it how many times to the balls.
I mean,
That one you showed at the beginning of this clip, Porter was pulling his head down.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
did do that, and you know that's illegal. And Spence, you're right about that. Spence, in a lot of instances, like, dude, if you're gonna do that, I'm gonna hit you.
Well, the referee will often not call. Matter of fact, I think he actually warns Porter when he gets hit low one of those times about holding Spence behind the head. A referee will usually say no low blow when that happens because when you pull the head, it throws everything off target.
Right.
And so if I'm in there and my head's on your chest and I'm leaning and I'm already dipping to throw a body shot, you take and you push my head down, everything moves down. So, but that's not to say that not all of them clearly weren't like that. But one of the ones you showed at the beginning of these clips, Porter was pulling his head down.
Right.
And Porter got warned for it.
Yeah. What's the point of the referee telling the guy, hey, this is right here is low, and then he doesn't enforce it? I mean, that was way low, this clip here.
Yeah.
And I mean, Sean Porter even told him, what the fuck you doing, man?
Yeah.
Look at that. Let's just rewind here. Boom.
Oh,
see
that's
that, right?
low, yeah.
That's
And it's
right
not
on the
being
dick.
pulled down there.
Yeah, he ain't being pulled down there, and he still punched him in the dick. I mean, that's dangerous. Punching a guy in the dick. I mean, come on.
Now, for any fanboys that want to try and defend all this guy was an Olympian. He's a 3-belt world champion, and his coach was a professional fighter, all the way through into the pros. So you're trying to tell me that he doesn't know how to throw a correct body shot, and it happens all too often in every one of his fights. This is an accident. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into real estate and try and sell you some land in Florida called the Everglades.
I mean, I'm telling you, it's he knew what he was doing with it. And by the way, were there other fights where he was hitting him, where Spence has been hitting low?
The Ocampo fight.
Yeah, I'd have to rewatch that one. That was one of the few ones. It was so short I haven't even really bothered to rewatch it.
The body
of...
shot, the body combination that he stops Ocampo with, the punch that starts it all is a left uppercut to the balls. I was watching it the other day. Oh, and I do have a correction to make on something I said. Thanks to our good friend official. He IM'd me and said that Spence has been stunned in every fight. In the beginning of the 5th round, Mikey Garcia stunned Spence with a right hand, and Spence went against the ropes and covered up and didn't answer back. So every one of his fights, from Brooke all the way up until Ugas, he has been stunned in every one of them.
Interesting. I'd have to rewatch
so
that fight.
He hasn't been stunned in yet.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean that's bad, man. Listen, the more we're talking about it, and the more the fight nears, the more I am finally getting ready to pull that trigger on the prediction and say yes, Crawford. You know, the other thing about Spence is he tends to overcommit here, and he tends to take okay. So here's the infamous sequence where he got hit and his mouthpiece dropped. Now, you guys were talking a lot about it. Like, he's a professional fighter. He's an inside fighter. Was that?
He was hurt just before, and the commentators say something. He gets hit with the right hand, and his right leg buckles, and then they go into this pseudo mini clinch, and Ugas knocks his mouthpiece out. Spence goes to look for it, and then he throws the 1-2 that we see. I'm finally caught up to the sequence. He throws the 1-2 and drives him into the ropes. So he was technically hurt like 3 times in 30 seconds by a guy whose knockout percentage is in the 30s.
Yeah, and then
Oh,
most importantly, also I think, look, he leaves his head wide open, and a punch that Ugas didn't throw and catch him with right there, that he could have, if that's somebody else like Terence Crawford, could have caught him with.
might I add the fact this is a former junior welterweight with a knockout percentage in the 30s.
Yeah, that's a little worrisome. It's a little concerning. But concerning too is the fact we're recognizing Gonzalo was saying yesterday too is like, this is a guy that's a come forward predator, and he's thinking about losing his teeth in the fight. And again, this is the second time in his career, as far as I know, that he made this mistake because he did in the Danny Garcia fight as well. Now the referee might have had some.
Round.
The referee too might have fucked up because it seemed as if he was gonna step in, but hey, protect yourself at all times, man. If he doesn't say stop, you don't fucking stop.
That's the thing. Some people heard the referee say stop. I've not watched this with sound too many times. I watch most of the fights I watch nowadays on mute, so I'm not persuaded by commentators, and I just watch the fight and I study like what we're doing right here. So I don't know if the referee said stop because I haven't watched it full speed. But if the referee did say stop, that was the issue, is because there was no grounds for him to do that. They were fighting. There was no lull in the action. There was no clinch. Spence had not moved away while he was looking for his mouthpiece, but while doing that, Ugas was closing in to fight. So if the referee was going to stop it, he needed to not just say stop, but step in and almost like they do at the end of the round, call time. He didn't do that. Ugas had every right, as far as I could tell. There, see, he didn't step in at all.
Yeah. Now I want to say something about this. Yeah, here he was stunned here. There's no doubt about it. He was stunned here. You see how as soon as he gets hit, his head gets shook all up, and then that's a knockdown right there. Because if it wasn't for the ropes, he would have hit the canvas. That being said, when I hear things like, well, he was hurt 3 times, I don't know about that though, Chief. I'm gonna try to pull up the fight here. Now we can't watch more than 5 seconds at a time though, so it's gonna be a little bit difficult. But I want to go back to the sequence that you mentioned where he sort of leaned, he got put on his heels. And I've seen people say that, well, that's the sequence where he was hurt, but I didn't see a punch land. Let me see if I can look it up. But it is important because that's something that I hear a lot of people saying. He was hurt about 3 times in that round, and I go, I don't know if he was hurt in that sequence. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of it. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay. Yeah, but what are the rest of you guys think? Yeah.
That from the angle that the camera's going to show, Spence's back is completely to us, and Ugas comes in and throws.
Nice fan base after
I'm
that.
thinking right. He's facing us, so I'm thinking it's the right hand. And then when Spence goes back, his right leg buckles, and it's after a punch is thrown. So either he slipped on the canvas in the middle of the ring from a punch that missed, or Ugas landed a shot that buckled his legs. Seeing the fact that Ugas didn't have a hard time finding Spence in this fight, even if Spence was, using the high guard to block shots, he still didn't have a hard time finding distance for all 10 rounds. He was able to connect on Spence's body one way or another from the first round to the fight ended. So I'm not inclined to believe that he missed that shot.
Well, yeah, I'm talking. Yeah, when after the mouthpiece thing, yeah, he was hurt there. I'm
talking prior to.
Right. Well, I'm talking. Maybe I don't know which punch we're talking about here now, but I'm going to show you the one I'm talking about. Maybe we can come to a determination here. The fuck? Why is this so big? Hold on, give me a second here. I don't understand why this is all out of frame. Fuck. What's going on here? Give me 2 seconds. Hey, don't forget to hit the like, fellas.
That 54 is his age, right? That 54 on his trunks.
That's his real. That's the real age. That's on his birth certificate. All right, now this is a clip that I'm talking about that some people reference to that he was hurt here. Let me rewind, and I gotta pause it because otherwise we can get in trouble here. Now, for some reason, it doesn't want to play now. What the fuck? Don't do this to me. All right, hold on a sec.
PBC sabotage.
I had to rewind. I'm gonna put it up soon. Hold on, because I rewinded too much. But yeah, we're gonna. Now he was definitely hurt, like I said, after he speed at the mouthpiece. But earlier than that, we'll see. Hold on.
Did he spit it out or did he get it knocked out?
Yeah, you're right. He got it
knocked
knocked. Yeah, he got it knocked out. You're right.
And he might have thought it was his teeth, right? Like instinct when he got into that car accident. Like that's what popped up in his head.
He just
Yeah.
once.
The teeth from him came later, so I don't know if that's him reflecting, if that was the real answer. I don't really know. And I'm not trying to say it's an excuse. I don't have false teeth, so I don't know what I would do in that scenario. But the mouthpiece fell out both times, and he went looking for the mouthpiece.
Yeah, no, it's because I think also it's if you get implants, the way your teeth close, it's different. It might not be a bite where you can actually put the top teeth and the bottom teeth together. And when you can't, it's like closing a fist. If you put too much hand wrap around your hands and on top of the glove, you can't make a good fist. You're gonna punch differently. Well, the same thing with the bite. If you can't lock your teeth together, then you can't flex the muscle on your jaw to compress everything around your skull to take a punch. It's gonna be loose.
I got a crown on by the back of my mouth, right? Like I lost the back tooth. It was like the what is that? The wisdom, but the wisdom tooth, not the wisdom tooth, but the tooth next to it. So,
the molars.
The molars, yep. So I had gotten a crown, and I remember sparring. I might have been sparring with my brother, but I remember getting hit a couple of times, and this is with headgear. So, getting hit. You know how you kind of like you turn your head around to break the punch a little bit, and every time I kept getting hit there, and when I got hit, I always felt like my crown came out. Anytime the mouthpiece got a little bit loose, there's my tooth. There it is, you know.
Is that because that's a cautionary tale? All those waffles and ice cream. I mean, you gotta brush your teeth right afterwards, man.
Well, you'll be shocked. Guess how I broke that molar. You won't believe it. Eating cornflakes.
Oh.
Yeah, man. Cornflakes with pieces of banana in it.
With dry banana or?
No, just a banana. You cut it and then you pour some honey in there. And
That's a classic right there.
Yeah, that's a classic right there.
That's right.
Yeah, and with the temporary teeth, they might not have been shaped and formed the way like when you pay for the final product, where that one's gonna sit on top of the bottom one, then it's gonna like actually like lock. And then he also said he didn't have the mouthpiece where that mouthpiece was shaped and formed exactly to the permanent teeth. So now he got the permanent teeth and he got a mouthpiece that conforms to those permanent teeth. So it means that you can actually lock everything together. Everything need to be locked.
Well, what he has, Gonzalo, are implants, right? That's what he has. He has the whatever he got, the porcelain implants, whatever he did. He's got a lot of money, so he can get those.
Yeah, it was replacements, but then now it's permanent. So now it's the implants.
Right. So like obviously they can still get knocked out. So he's like worried when he got hit. It almost. I mean, I'm not in his head. It almost seemed like he was like, "Oh man, there goes my fucking there goes my new teeth again. I don't want to deal with this shit."
No, I recognize and remember we were talking about it. Like actually, like after it happened, we said that all this was gonna be a factor, and it turned out to be exactly that. Before that shit started happening, where you started losing the mouthpiece, we were saying that's gonna be a problem.
Yep.
Now here is the clip that I was referring to, and maybe this is the clip that we were all talking about because I don't know. This is in the 6th round, 2-minute 7-second mark. That one, see that right there? I didn't see a punch land. I saw him get pushed a little bit. Let's see if I can rewind it here. Ah, fuck. See, it rewinds too much, man. It rewinds 10 seconds. Hold on a sec. And now it's corrupted here. I'll see if I can slow it down, okay? Because I'm using a different player here. He throws a left. I don't know. It seems like he got shoved there. Is that the one you were talking about, Chief? Where'd everybody go?
I think he might have dipped out. I don't know. Chief, are you there?
My microphone wasn't unmute. Yeah, that's what I was referring to. When you show it like that, I'm not so sure, but his whole body went rubbery. I mean, you don't get rubbery from a push unless his balance was so off he couldn't get. Where were his legs? Why were his legs? Why was his whole body like rubber from a push?
It's a weird reaction.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. I mean, listen, the one thing I would say about Ugas, he is strong, but his body went rubbery, like Chief was saying. So
I think a short right landed inside that he didn't see.
Yeah,
and his legs were.
That's because Ugas is not like, okay. People keep saying about, keep talking about his low percentage knockout ratio, which is low. But what I would say is that he's a strong dude. You can just tell by the frame he has. And, you can tell how physical he can get in the ring too. And so when you get caught with one of those punches you don't see coming, it still doesn't excuse a guy who's very strong like Spence going rubbery like that. Because I guarantee you, if he gets caught with something like that against Crawford, it's going to be more than just rubbery.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Let's see. He throws the uppercut.
He's going to come more wide or with a cross.
Yeah, that's with a cross.
And when he does, Ugas, you can see Ugas's arm extend, and then
I don't know. It seems like a shove, man.
You can call that a push, but if you play it full speed, it doesn't look like a push. It looks like a punch.
Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can get to it. Because again, I can't play this thing every time I click the rewind. It rewinds automatically by 10 seconds. So I don't want to play. If you play 10 seconds. Oh, by the way, okay. So here's a clip as I'm watching it before. Hold on. A couple of seconds before that sequence, he falls back on his heels again. Similar to here, let me show you. Like right here. Look at this. See that?
Yeah.
Maybe that's just shitty balance on the inside. I don't know.
That's not going to bode well against Crawford either.
Yeah, exactly. Whether he was hurt or not, I mean that being on your heels is a big no-no in boxing. Yeah, see, this is the one I'm talking about. This is where he sort of got shoved there. This is the first one. The first him on his heels. He seems to have, I don't know, man. It's for a guy that's a good body puncher. Yeah, exactly.
He's doing with Ugas what Garcia did to him. And he's squaring up because Ugas is such a big body, like Recognized said, that he's giving him so much of a target. He's not paying attention to his feet, and his feet were squared. So yeah, it was kind of Ugas bodied him off, and he kind of like was off balance a little bit, but when you play that clip that you and I are talking about, full speed, it looks like a short right. It goes in. So Spence is swinging with like almost like a cross on an overhand left, and he gets caught. It looks like he gets caught with a right hand when it's full speed. Slow motion looks like a push. Full speed, it looks like a short right hand landed, and he wobbles backwards. And then he goes inside there, right there. So then they go inside. He gets hit with a punch that knocks the mouthpiece out, and he kind of stumbles around looking for the mouthpiece. He can say he was looking for his teeth or anything like he wanted to, but again, like I said, my military training, when you lose situational awareness, it's because an outside force has caused you to lose focus. Well, what caused him to lose focus? He got punched.
Exactly. It looks like he got punched in the chest or the arm or something. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. But his reaction is weird.
That brings up the other point,
the way
which
his
is
body went.
That's the other point that we brought up 2 days ago, which was how many punches has he really faced? Danny Garcia. Ugas is a strong guy, but he's not a big puncher.
He's not really a puncher at welterweight.
Right.
But Danny Garcia is a sharp puncher. He has sharp punches. He has respectable.
I'll take that.
You don't want to go in reckless against Danny. He'll put you on your ass at welterweight. Now, can he knock you out? Can he go in there and knock you out? Depends on the level of guy you are. If you're a lower tier guy than he is, he'll probably knock you out. But if it's even,
Guerrero's a lower tier guy, and he didn't knock him out.
Well, yeah. Listen, fights are not 100% predictable. But what I'm saying, if he's gonna knock you out at welterweight, it's because you're a lower tier guy who can't match up.
Yeah, okay.
You know, you
Yeah,
get
we're
you're
on the
He's got
outgunned.
heavy. He's got heavy hands.
When you outgun anybody, you're knocking them out. You're knocking them out because you can't stop the punches from coming.
Yeah, I
It's not that
remember
you
what
got
Thurman said.
tremendous
Manny
power.
Pacquiao, little bricks. Danny Garcia, like he hits like big bricks. I think with Errol Spence, the feet, the whole thing about him not having good balance at times, it's because look, he has good balance when it comes to foot placement. When it comes to offensively, getting himself into position to land to throw the punches, he places his feet well. But when it comes to turning that off in order to go on the defense, he can't switch back and forth that quickly. Right. So he can put himself in position to punch where he'll retain that good balance. But when it's time to switch that off in order to become defensively responsible, he can't transition real quick into that. That's why he's not letting his hands go when the opponent is punching. He would rather resort to parrying, which is the quickest thing to do, probably.
You know, you get that's a great point. That's a great way
Or
of
the
putting it.
easiest.
Right, it's a great way of putting it right there, Gons, because you know he's a guy that has to plant and then go to work. He's a miner. You know, Terence Crawford is a dynamite guy. He will, if he's working in the mine, he'll put dynamite in there and blow and get the job done with 3 or 4. Whereas Spence has to dig in with his pick and his axe and just work. Both are effective, but the question is how this is going to play out in the ring. Now, you can see here Terence Crawford, some clips of him against Porter. You can just see the speed difference between some of the Spence clips we were watching and what Crawford is able to bring to the table. Now he can't do this 3 minutes of every second of every round because it's very explosive and it does take a lot of stamina to do this. But you can see here there's a big difference in speed, and then on top of that, he's got power behind him, and he's doing it punches in bunches. That's going to be the key against Spence. One punch at a time might not work. It's got to be bunches in bunches. And then as you can see here, this is against Avenician, this is against Delorme.
That's
Very
the one thing
quick.
that worries me about picking Crawford is the fact that he doesn't throw punches. I mean, he might throw combinations, but it's a counter situation. He doesn't take the initiative. He doesn't use his jab to set things. Well, I'm not saying he doesn't. How can I put this? It's Larry Holmes would use his jab to set everything else up, right? And so everything worked off the jab. And Spence does things very similar from the left-handed stance. Everything works off the jab. Bud doesn't fight like that. And because of that, there may be situations that it looks like Spence is outworking Bud, but Bud may be letting him do his thing and looking for counter shots. And if all he's going to do is look for counter shots, I can definitely see him getting outworked. Maybe not beat up like my friend told me that was going to happen, because Spence doesn't try to beat up. Spence doesn't try to beat up guys with knockout ratios. He just doesn't. The proof's in the pudding. He hasn't gone after a guy. He didn't go after Danny. He didn't go after Mikey. And he didn't go after Brooke. But he went after Ugas, Peterson, and Porter. So, I mean, the proof's just in the pudding. That's the way he fights. Bud's got a high knockout percentage, and at welterweight's 100%. So he's not going to go after him like that. But I do think that he can outwork Bud if Bud's just looking for that opportunity instead of setting things up smartly.
By the way,
That's need to bring I think what Chief just said there, to me, is the real. Now I don't want to say narrative, but it's the scenario that I see happening. I think that Bud, especially at 147 pounds, can be outworked. The reason why his work rate is lower, I think he has more confidence in his power now, and he's going for the knockout. And I think the knockout is. That's why I say, to me, if anybody could, they both could knock each other out. If there's one guy, when it comes to who can outbox who, I see it the other way around. I see Spence. That's why I'm picking Spence to win.
Yeah. I'm also going to add that one thing that I don't see that Spence, now that I'm watching the whole thing with him, sometimes we're good. Sometimes fighters can switch their muscles fibers to fire on quickly, but can they really switch them off to do something else? With Errol Spence, he gets kind of stiff in there. He looks stiff as hell, like he needs WD-40 around the joints. Something is not. That's why he prefers to block because it's probably way easier than moving the waist on the swivel. Shit like that.
He needs a little oil squeak on him, right? For his teeth.
Yeah, he's and then go. It's same thing with the feet. He can place the feet in there, so he can get good power underneath his shots. But then when it comes to spinning out and around, like maybe like a Terence Crawford does, can he turn that off so he can fire other things on? Right? Can he do that? That's the thing. He's like, yeah, he's very well rounded, but he's very mechanical. One thing before I turn the other on, and before I turn the other off and the other on again. It's not like very like lucid, like maybe a Terence Crawford could.
Wait, what happened? Are we still in the air? What happened? Hello?
I don't know because I was talking and everything got quiet.
Yeah, I thought I was talking, but I got fucking. I don't know. I think I muted myself. Shit.
Well, this type of little mistakes are acceptable.
These type of little mistakes. And then I tried to unmute it, and my phone wouldn't work. So,
well, listen,
anyway.
these type of little mistakes are unacceptable, and neither guy. These types of mistakes are unacceptable. That's number one. Number two, neither guy can make this type of mistakes either in the ring, or they're gonna get knocked out. Hey, by the way, Chief, that guy that you're debating outside the internet, any chance you could bring him on Friday and you and him debate him on Friday, or?
I'll try and see if I can get a hold of him. I can take him in spurts. Recognize knows what I'm talking about. I used to talk to him about some of our conversations.
That guy. I know.
The guy I used to the guy I used to refer to as Savalas.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting. From what you told me about him, it'll be an interesting. It'll be interesting to have him on air, BDA. That's for sure. He's got some interesting takes.
Oh, you never know, man.
Yeah.
Maybe he can convince.
And he's going back and forth. I don't want to take too much away from the show anymore, but he's going back and forth on things also. Like, Floyd would beat Ray Leonard. Oh, do you think I'm crazy to say that Floyd would beat Ray Leonard? There's no way that Floyd would beat Ray Leonard. Then the other day he went back again going, yeah, of course I said that. You know, he's just a better fighter. And I'm just like, well, which you've changed your story 3 times. Which one is it?
Maybe he's bipolar, man. Maybe, hey, wait a minute. I figured out who it is. It's Mauro Ranallo.
You guys do not know this person.
Oh, okay. So it's not Mauro Ranallo. Hey, by the way, Larry Liston was going after Ray Flores. Ray Flores is one of the, announcing is not bad, but commentating, he's way too biased. I don't know how he got his job. I will say this. When it comes to Spence, he's got a feint Crawford out of position because he will drop his hands when you feint him and when you change levels with him up and down. And that's the key to getting Crawford to finally just staying in the pocket with his hands up. Because if he's on the move, it's going to be hard for Spence to get his body shots in. Now, I wanted to ask you this. This is one of the famous sequences in the Gamboa fight where Gamboa was able to, well, as you can see there, that's a bunch of overhand rights. Wait a minute, where is it? I thought I showed the clip where he gets hurt. Maybe I have it somewhere else. But what about that? Because one of the big things that people picking Spence are saying is, well, Lou last Gamboa was able to stun him. So imagine what Spence is going to do. What do you guys think about that?
That's a stupid
Errol Hoyt's changed better as he moves. Wait. All right, you go first, Recognize.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If you remember, De La Hoya got knocked out twice when he was down at 130-ish. It was either pre-title win or it was just after he won the WBO, so it might have been at 130 even. Campanella and one other guy. And the other guy, I think his win-to-knockout ratio might have been high, but his overall knockout ratio, because of all his losses, was low. But anyway, that was at 130 pounds. Well, he got hit after that by Miguel Angel Gonzalez, Julio Cesar Chavez, and other fighters, and nothing happened to. He didn't go down again until he fought Corte. Well, I'm sorry, he tripped over Whitaker's foot, and they called it a knockdown. But but the official knockdown that was actually by a fist and nothing more was Corte. And then he took punches from Bernard Hopkins and didn't go down to a body shot. Look at those punches he took from Manny Pacquiao when he was starved and drained from being at 154 for like 5 years and going back down and didn't go down. So your chin can get better as you move up in weight, especially if you're starving yourself to make an artificial weight, like we've pointed out that's what Bud was doing at 135.
Yeah, I would look at more recent examples of. Here's an example of how Crawford could go down, right, against a guy like Spence. I wouldn't look at Gamboa. Gamboa is the wrong one to look at because, first of all, okay, he was much bigger than Gamboa. I don't think there was any respect for power there until he had to respect it. You get what I'm saying? And so he got caught. He got clipped a couple of times in that fight where he's probably more cautious. Obviously, on instinct, you're going to punch harder and got him out of there. I would look at more examples of when he was more or less a welterweight or close to it. John Molina comes to mind. I think it was the third round. If you go check that out. He gets clipped in the exchanges, like on the ropes or something like that, and he looked hurt. And the referee kind of like gets in the middle for I don't know what reason. What's the other example? What's the kid that he fought that dropped him, but they didn't call it a knockdown? Kavaluskas. Kavaluskas dropped
that
him.
one that you and I argued about before.
Right. To me, that's a knockdown. Okay. The referee
I understand
doesn't
why you do. I didn't think it was, but there's reasons because of. But he was clipped by a shot.
He was clipped by a shot, and what I'm saying is he was clipped by a shot, and it caused body movement. Whether it's a knockdown or not, it shows that he can be knocked down. Sean Porter hit him with some big shots where he's got his head snapping, and we know that Sean Porter is not really a committed puncher. He's one of those guys that just wants to rough you up, and he was able to get his head bobbling around a little bit. So those are the more examples I would look at. The Gamboa thing, dude. Again, like go look at the size difference. He just felt that there was no worry there.
But still, I mean, Gamboa, if you think about it too, also recognize Gamboa, the shorter little T-Rex arms on the inside.
Yes.
They're going to come back and forth quicker. So he's going to thread in between your longer levers.
That's right.
With John Molina, I heard he had a hell of a left hook. That against other fighters, he wasn't a complete fighter or anything, but against other fighters, when he landed that left, he was starching those dudes, right?
Yeah.
And who else? Cavaluskas went out to hurt Virgil Ortiz as well. So we know he's a puncher.
Yes, right? Exactly. Yep. No, you bring up good points. Like
guys, against the guys that can't punch, they cannot punch. He doesn't get stunned. Against the guys that can punch, then some get his attention. Unlike Spence, guys that can punch still get his attention.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. It's really, I think that the big strategy for Spence, his best shot here is to get some body shots, because him trying to go, I mean, once he gets him to the body, then he can start mixing it up upstairs. But Crawford's going to be very highly aware of everything that's coming upstairs, and he's going to prevent, he's going to try to prevent Spence from getting on the inside. Before we continue, recognize, did you see the press conference today? The final press conference? They recognize.
No, I didn't. I heard the Discord too. I think the Discord was showing pictures of Errol Spence, right, and Crawford, and I guess Spence looks a little bit depleted.
Well,
it seems that way.
They both brought their entourages and their families. It was close to the public, but it was open to their entourages and their families. And every time Crawford would say, like, for example, the peanut guy, the guy who looks like a peanut, Custer, Brian Coster, he would ask Spence, what can we expect on Saturday night? And then Spence would go, well, I think I'm gonna beat his ass. And then people would start hooting, hollering, well, no, that's right, and they would all start talking. And then when Crawford would say the same thing, he says, I'm gonna beat him, blah blah blah. And then you would start hearing that families going back and forth. It was like Def Comedy Jam. A lot of talking, a lot of hooting, hollering, and then it's interesting because, and Butcher brought this up, Crawford was actually told both sides at the beginning of the press conference, chill, this is between us, or something to that effect. But then this happened. Check this out. Somebody kept talking and talking and talking, and it finally caught Crawford's attention.
Let's see what's gonna happen. What's going on?
Errol Spence Jr., same question. Over 1 million people are going to buy this fight. Over 20,000 are going to come to this arena. What can you guarantee the boxing public they're going to get when you step in the ring with Terence Bud Crawford?
You a bitch, nigga. You a bitch, nigga. See, you a bitch, nigga. Hold on. You talking to, nigga? Let Errol. You a bitch, nigga. Cause you keep talking like a bitch, nigga. You doing all that talking, nigga. That's how. You doing all that talking, nigga. Oh, whole ass nigga. You catch me, gotta come back. Catch me, gotta come back. Real niggas don't talk, nigga. And you talking too much, nigga. Well, like I said, this is gonna be some iconic shit right here. This is gonna be legendary shit right here. Female ass nigga. Y'all make sure y'all tune in. This is legendary.
So as you can see, I recognize it got a little heated there, and there's a woman. I think that's a woman. I don't know if it's a lesbian and then there's the other one there on the side. What do you think about? What do you think about that approach? Recognize.
Listen, man. I know it's ignorant. But like, I'm from the streets, man. I kind of like the way Crawford handled himself. I'm from there. Like sometimes somebody talks shit, you try to ignore it, and sometimes you got to say, he got disrespectful right back, and I don't have a problem with it too much. I probably would have added some words. I'll be like, shut the fuck up before I smack the shit out of you and your girl.
Oh,
I'd probably said something. Yeah, something really. Something that will provoke a fight, to see if you really want to fight.
Hey, recognize.
I'd be like, fuck you and your girl before I fuck her in front of you. Some shit like that.
Wait a minute. See, now that's going a little
Yeah. Listen, you're going to disrespect me, I'm going to disrespect you back. I'll probably just do it a little worse. Fair
enough.
Hey, recognize, as I was telling Mr. BDA when he asked me, what do you think? Do you think it's kind of true? Like, since they kind of have respect for each other, they're not going to talk shit to each other, but then they're going to divert that to the people that are talking shit. Because, Terence Crawford went at that one person, and then Errol Spence went at another person from the opposite team. So it's like, what I really want to say, I want to say to my opponent, but since I respect his fighting ability, and I'm not 100% sure how it's going to pan out on the ring, I'm just going to focus that energy to his fans.
Yeah. Look, I would prefer, honestly, that they don't get into no exchanges with them, because it's like, look, I'm not fighting you. I'm fighting the guy you're rooting for. Beat him up. Focus on that. Beat his ass up, and then when the fight's over, look them in the eye and be like, I did that to your man. Talk shit now.
This is gonna be our new subscriber alert, by the way. This woman, they're doing the talking sound. This one, blah 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 blah. You ain't about shit, N-word. You ain't about shit. That's what they say. But it's interesting that that observation that you guys brought up. Gonzalo also bringing up the good observation that since they're trying to avoid talking too much trash to each other, it's gonna be diverted to the people talking shit outside. And somebody else in the chat mentioned that Crawford was probably talking to a guy who was in a white tank top. That was not that the cameras from Showtime were unable to capture. So maybe that's why he said old hoe ass N-word. The other thing is, like what you just said.
You a whole ass nigga.
That's what my priest.
You gotta say it twice.
It's interesting. My priest called that somebody. That's what he told somebody the last time that somebody got mouthy during one of the services. He said the exact same words. But it's interesting. Bucho also said that Crawford was trying to throw water on the fire, and then he got caught up in it. So it's almost like he was trying to, I don't know, maybe.
And I understand. Listen, I understand because it's after a while, like it's hard for me to be the fucking, turn the cheek, turn the turn away type of guy and not say anything when it's so easy to get them back. It's like, I know you're emotional. That's why you're screaming at me. So I'm going to see if I could say something that could trigger you. Maybe you step up and try to do something, so I could understand where he's coming from,
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying that, they're probably talking shit to him the whole time, and he just had enough. And he's like, "Get out of here, man! I'll smack the shit out of you. Get the fuck out of here. You and your stupid ass girlfriend."
Yeah, I'm trying to find the clip where we might have
because girls will get a dude beat the shit out of. I've seen it way too many times. Where a girl, especially those caliber of girls, they just talk so much shit, and the boyfriend will get beat up, and she gets smacked in her face because of her. It's all because she started the whole thing.
Oh yeah, that's a tale as old as time. Women talking too much and getting their man in trouble. That's
Killed.
An absolute
Killed.
Yeah.
Even killed. Yeah.
That's why I stay away from any argument in the streets. No siree, Bob. Mr. BD8 will not get involved in any armed conflict, any physical conflict, and if it push comes to shove, I will defend myself. That's the only reason why I would do that. And I've also I will also reserve physical altercations in case I have to effectuate a citizen's arrest. I've pulled off a couple, and I'm not afraid to do it if the situation merits it. But anyway, I can't find the clip.
Imagine if it said, "Calm your bitch down before I do."
Yeah, that would have said some. That would have set him off. But you know what? To be fair, Errol Spence also got a little pissed off because he was doing some sort of interview yesterday. Let me see if I can find it. He was in the ring doing an interview, and somebody kept yelling "Goldfish." I don't understand what the insult was, but Spence didn't appreciate it, and he actually addressed it. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on.
He might not remember it once he get older.
I can't hear what he's saying. The fuck is here? Yeah, I can't understand what he's saying. That the audio's too bad. But apparently somebody kept saying "Goldfish," and he said, "Shut your ass up." And then he kept going on with the interview, and then he said, "I'm gonna shut up Crawford the same way I wish I could shut this guy up," or something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know what it is? It seems like to me, both sides brought antagonizers that are going to try to get under the skin of both fighters. So whoever figured it out first, right? Let's say it was Terence Crawford. Terence said, he's going to bring his hound dogs, and they're going to be barking at me.
Right.
Get me some guys that are going to do the same shit. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what they did. And they're basically trying to get under each other's skin. And you could see Crawford trying to laugh it off. I couldn't see the Spence one. And he just finally had enough, And I don't think he got too distracted unless there's something else happened. But I don't blame him for giving them a mouthful. You're going to talk shit to me, I'll talk shit back.
Hey, well, they better keep him away from the ringside seat row, right? Because it'll be like that movie, Deuce Bigelow. Remember when you got Rob Schneider in the stands? She's a huge bitch.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah? Exactly, you're right, man. There's someone's.
I remember that part.
Yeah, if Crawford brings his wife, people are gonna start. People were already going after on Twitter. Because she actually talked, I forget what she said, but people started going after her because she got involved in the whole thing. So it seems like it's no holds barred right now, or it's about to get no holds barred. So we shall see what happens there. I'm trying to find the clip.
I haven't seen X. You guys haven't heard from X, right? Was X there?
Well, that's the thing, though.
I didn't see. Oh, X.
Well,
I didn't see Terence Crawford's sisters there because he's got some pretty rowdy sisters that gone into. What's that dude from Sheffield? The English dude? Yeah, but Terence Crawford got some sisters.
Yeah, that's true, man. You're right.
I didn't see them there. They're pretty rowdy.
Shout out to Uncle Pete for his contribution with Super Chat. He says Crawford went 100x on Spence's people. Yeah, X. I think he might be on the run.
I think he's in jail. Yeah, he's either in jail or on the run. I think one or two.
He might be laying low. He made a lot of enemies in the past, and
I thought I got a phone call from a weird number, and they actually left a voicemail, and it almost sounded like him.
Really?
I can't confirm. Yeah, I can't confirm it, but I think it was him.
I wonder what would have happened.
It sounded something like this, motherfucker. Like that's all I heard.
Motherfucker, that's all you heard. Motherfucker. Oh,
yeah, it's like a lot of wind. There's a lot of wind in the background, and then I just heard that motherfucker.
Maybe he's hiding out in Scotland or something. I don't know. It's very windy out there. I will say though, I would have loved to have seen 70s Recognize versus 100% X. That would have been something, man. The back and forth between those guys.
Oh, to smack the X out of him, Jack.
He's a jive turkey.
That's a big
jive turkey.
Yeah, that's what people are
big world out there. It's a big world out there, BDA.
That's a huge bitch.
I think that's what Gonzalo was talking about. that's what people are going to be saying about this Crawford's wife. Yeah, he better keep her away from the public's eye in this fight, man, because people are just going to go.
Big bitch.
Listen here, you big bitch.
All right, now see, that's enough. That's enough. Too much cursing. I don't like it. Shout out to Never Solvers for his contribution to the Super Chat. And he says, let me see what he's saying. Or he says, why did Derek James call Bomac Big Mac? I think we can figure that one out. Or I think you can figure that one out. Yeah, the back and forth between.
Not hard to figure that one out.
If Bomac got into the roasting competition, I would suggest keep quiet, buddy. Because there's so many things they can call you. You better be careful.
Then again, he might be able. I've seen Derek James's professional fights, and maybe if Bomac can connect with one shot, maybe he can lay him out. I mean, Derek James knows a thing or two about being stopped. So I hope for their sakes those guys don't get into.
He knocked out.
Hey, no wonder he's got like 3 assistants, because you can tell that Bomac when he walks a few steps, he's already getting like winded.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
he's a big motherfucker.
He's very big, and he's not even that tall, by the way. And by the way, I think I found the clip. Let's see if I can. This one, Spence was getting, somebody was talking shit to him.
Being away from your girls for 3 weeks, being here in Las Vegas, does that get you meaner? Does that make you that much more, dialed in?
Yeah, getting away from too just made me.
Let me fast forward.
I just want to tell people, look, especially some people behind me talking about they goldfish shit. No distract season, man. Damn, we on crawfish boil. And then guys on Saturday night.
So you see that there were people screaming at him, calling him goldfish and whatnot. So it's starting to.
Could they be calling him that because of his because of the way he looks now? Because he does kind of look like a goldfish.
I wonder if they're just trying to belittle that big fish nickname that he's got, which I don't know where that came from.
Oh, okay. Because I thought Crawford, they called him crawfish.
Oh, maybe
they do. They call him crawfish sometimes.
Yeah,
there's a lot of fish innuendos here.
Yeah. They're having fun, which there's nothing wrong with that as long as nobody gets involved. You know what I mean? Like, don't get involved in it. Let the two guys, let them handle it. But when you start mouthing off and you got beer involved and it's boxing, there could be fights outside of the ring.
I got to tell you, I don't like it when people have too much fun. If I were there, I would limit the fun and I would tell these guys, settle down.
I know. We know you would.
I'm just saying. I like to keep things serious here.
You're anti. I got you.
No, not that I'm anti-fun, but like, for example, I think there is such a thing as people laughing a little bit too much. There's dangerous amounts of laughter out there.
Well, first of all, laughing too much is no good. You could die. You could literally die from laughing too much.
See, I didn't know that. Well, with that being said, fellas, anything else you want to say about this fight? Predictions and all that? I mean, we took down some predictions.
Yeah, I think I'm sticking with mine.
Well, I'll take this
That's Spence
opportunity
5.
then. Yeah, I'll take this opportunity to write down my prediction then, because I have yet to write it. BDA. I go with Crawford. I'm gonna take. You guys are making some very good points. You're saying Crawford by stoppage, and the Guns says Crawford 12-round TKO. Chief said Crawford decision. Jimmy said, where is Jimmy? Crawford by stoppage. Recognize says Spence by decision. I mean, I'm gonna go with Crawford decision. I'm gonna take the safe pick. I don't know if he stops him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did because you guys are making. Yeah.
What's the odds? I'm sorry if you mentioned it already, but
I
don't remember it. What are the odds going into this fight?
It's about 2-1 for Crawford. He's the favorite.
2-1 for Crawford. That's kind of like, wow, 2-1 Crawford. I thought it would have been 2-1 Spence, but.
Well, let me see here. Maybe I suspect that on the day of the fight, it's probably going to be 3-1 or 4-1 for Crawford. Crawford is minus 155 favorite. So
Crawford is minus 155. So that's what? Yeah, that's roughly 2-1.
I'd put the money on. I'd put a little money on Spence just in case, man. Since he's the underdog, wouldn't mind putting some money in.
But I am kind of not shocked in terms of like their performance. I am kind of shocked that in the political side of things. I'm telling you, man, this might be a PBC event. I'm still rocking with Spence. I think he's going to win the fight. But don't be surprised. There's a reason why Vegas got Crawford winning this fight. They might know something that we don't know, and it might manifest in the ring.
Well, shout out to Anthony.
The only thing with conspiracy,
the odds.
Go ahead, guys.
It could be worse than the odds. You know what I'm saying?
Let me just say
again, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. You know, I believe Wilder. It was basically 50-50 fight, but Wilder was the slight favorite. But in reality, that was a whitewash. You know, that was like it should have been like a 10-1. The outcome.
Let me just say this real quick. Let me just add real quick. Shout out to Anthony Lopez for his contribution with the super chat. Says BDA, can you add mine? Crawford 10-round TKO. All right. Shout out to Anthony Lopez. I got you down for that. Yeah, man. The odds could play a factor in this. I mean, listen. I can't stop talking about it because people keep talking about it. There's a lot of people saying that if this goes the distance, Crawford will not get the decision. And this reminds me of Golovkin Canelo. When people were saying Golovkin cannot get the decision in Vegas, and it turned out to be true. So, yeah, these odds, man. I mean, you never know. Could be something afoot. Then again, like another caller said, he said Vegas never loses or seldom loses, and the odds makers have Crawford 2-1. Then that's probably because they figure he will win. We shall see.
Hey, PDA, there's been robberies on a consistent basis, man. Like every week.
Yeah,
that's fucking crazy.
It's it's been a great year of fights, but it's also been a bad year of decisions. To the point where after the Maxi Hughes one, I said, "Ugh, that really left a bad taste in my mouth." And you know, it's interesting as boxing fans, you got to take a stand at some point. Say, you know what? Maybe I'll take my money somewhere else to another sport or to another hobby, because what's the point of spending money on these fights, and then you can't even get the correct decisions, and guys are getting robbed and their careers are getting affected. So at some point, you got to stop watching it if it gets too corrupt. Got to make a stand.
Yeah, corruption.
What's the point of betting?
Go ahead, Gonzo.
What's the point of betting when you get the prediction right, but you're gonna get robbed by the judges?
Exactly.
If it were fair judging, you would get it right.
Exactly. You're absolutely right, man. It's
the only conspiracy I go with is if this 3-fight deal that PBC signed Canelo for has anything to do with Spence that they just haven't published, then there's no way he's going to lose this fight, no matter what happens. So if Bud gets a legitimate knockout, they'll call it a headbutt and a clash of heads in a no contest. I mean, if they're writing on this big super fight being those two guys to save Al Heyman's company, then there's no way Bud will ever win this fight. But that is also contingent on the fact that this really is the third fight, and there's a lot of stuff that's up in the air that hasn't even been decided. That's kind of hard to to swallow of that being the end all be all of that third fight, or possibly a fourth fight that they'll offer him at Canelo after those 3 fights. But if that's really their plan in the making, and that's the fight they really want to make because they think it's really going to sell and it's going to be the next, 2 million or more pay-per-view buys, then there's no way that Bud's going to win this fight because they're just not going to risk that much money going down. But I've only heard that rumor through the chats. I haven't heard it anywhere else. It hasn't been mentioned as part of the contract, and there's too many other players in the field for that fight for Canelo for this to necessarily be a precursor for how this fight's going to end.
Yeah, if they have planned Spence versus Canelo, that's in the pipeline, then Terence Crawford better make sure he gets this win and solidifies it with some sort of stoppage, because otherwise PBC might be smelling money. They are still in the red. That means they're losing money. Most of their big fights are on pay-per-view. Their Showtime deals on the rocks. Paramount might be cutting it, so these pay-per-views need to be successes. And as we know right now, boxing's not in a good place. That's the other thing about this pay-per-view is how many pay-per-view buys is it gonna make? Neither guy is a big mainstream star, so $1 million is
if you take the highest. If you take the highest that Spence has ever sold and the highest Bud's ever sold, you still haven't crossed 500,000 buys.
Exactly.
When Brian Custer said that, why do you think he said it, VDA? He said, it's going to sell over 1 million.
Did he say that? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he said for the 20...
said that.
So then that gives me an indication of what the PBC, what type of numbers they're going to try to leak out. Because remember, for anybody that's unaware of what they do, Showtime, PBC, they can't lie about the numbers directly. So what they do is they get a writer like Dan Rayfield or somebody else, and they tell him, hey, look, tell them that source informs you that he did this amount of buys. So, for example, with Tank Davis, when they would come out against with Isaac Cruz, and they go, oh, he did 200,000 pay-per-view buys. That's not what Showtime's saying. That's what a writer says. A writer says a source told me that he did this amount of number. So the writer can lie, but PBC legally they're obliged to tell the truth. They can't lie. So they use a writer to manufacture these numbers. The reality is that the closer numbers are way lower than that. So if the PBC comes out, I suspect and I predict that the PBC after this fight, they're going to come out and they're going to say that he did somewhere between 600,000 pay-per-view buys and 700 or even 800,000. They're not going to do 1 million because that's unbelievable. But they're going to stay close to something that's not too low either. Something that's close. By the way, they announced via their writers that Garcia versus Tank Davis did 1 million pay-per-view buys. And the reality is other people are saying that it didn't do that. It did 700,000, but not 1 million. So if even Garcia Davis couldn't do 1 million, don't expect this one to hit at that number or get close to it. That's just that reality.
Yeah, because they hyped the crap out that one, and Ryan was the big reason for all those pay-per-view buys. If Ryan, with all those social media followers, can't get 1 million people to come over, then what are these two guys going to do?
Mm-hmm. And maybe that's the reason it's worth $100, because although I think Tank Ryan did a lot, it was at a cheaper price. These guys might sell not nearly as enough, but since it's more expensive, I think that's what they're banking on to make the difference.
Yeah, I'll say they'll do from 700 to 1 million K. I'm gonna say
700.
That's gonna be 700K to 1 million buys.
Well, you expect this that it could do 1 million pay-per-view buys?
Yeah, I think it could.
Recognize
because I was shocked at Tank and Garcia, and it seems to be legitimate that it did what was it 800,000 or something like that?
700, 800, yeah, somewhere around there. But 1 million.
Okay, so yeah, I think it get close to. That's what I'm saying. I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll do any less than 700K, and I don't think it'll go, any higher than 1 million.
Recognize. I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out how to kick you off the Discord here. I can't really. I think you need a little. I think you need a little.
Well, I feel you.
I'm just saying.
Here's a nice juicy take. I think I think either guy could get knocked out from either round 1 through 12. How about that?
That's not enough, man. You're gonna have to give us something better than that, man. Now, after what you just said about this fight doing $1 million, I think you need a couple of minutes to cool off. I think that's what you need. I'm gonna.
Hey, so
kick off the panel.
$100 times $1 million, that's 100 million in revenue.
Well, I don't know, and that's
well,
the other problem.
if it does, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say that's the other problem.
$100 BDA is $100.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know, but look, the problem with the pay-per-view is the other thing is they got to split the revenue. The cable company and the channel, the network that's Showtime or PBC, whatever. They've got to split the money with the cable company. So let's say they do 500,000 pay-per-view buys. Whatever money they make off of that, they got to split, and that might not even be enough to. How much is each guy getting paid, by the way? How much is Spence and Crawford making?
I could have swore I heard anywhere from 10 to 20, 10 guaranteed to 20 million upside. And from the way I understand it, I'm not 100% sure on this, but it looks like it's 50-50, which is kind of not surprising to me. After all that shit Spence is talking about, it all came down to him being happy with the money they're going to give him. He doesn't care what they give Crawford. If it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
so I've heard a guarantee of 10 up front for both. And then I don't know how they're splitting the pay-per-views, but I heard that was going to be the one that if it's not 50-50, that's the one that's going to be in Spence's favor. So the upfront money is going to be even, and then the after pay-per-view money is what would be in Spence's favor if there is one, because I haven't read the breakdown of the post-fight profits. I've only read the upfront money.
Yeah, and the 20,000 in attendance also, that adds up to a little chunk of change.
That's right.
Change. I mean, a lot of money if their tickets are expensive.
Well, these guys are true, but at the same time, you got to remember, you got to recoup the money for renting the arena.
Yeah, of course, everything.
Yeah, no, it's everything involved. I think they're expecting something back, whether they get it or not, but they're expecting to make some profit on it.
Because supposedly they told Ryan Garcia, well, from what I heard and probably from what we heard, that he was only getting like 2 million, I don't know, 5 million, I don't know. But then it turns out that Oscar De La Hoya said that Ryan Garcia made 30 million. Imagine that. And that was for 700 pay-per-view buys.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true, man.
I don't know if that's true. Yeah, I would have to see the books on that. I mean, maybe from 700 he got a nice, I don't know if it's 30 million, but let's say maybe 10.
Maybe, I mean, yeah, even that seems too much, but maybe
30 million is a lot.
Yeah, that's. I mean, going from 5 million up front, then 30 million. I mean, I don't know. But
yeah, that's a shit.
But I don't.
Maybe
think
he's doubled. Maybe he doubled his pay with the unexpected buys. Because I would say that was kind of unexpected, right? 700K.
Yeah,
for that
I
fight.
didn't expect it. I mean, I did expect it rather. I didn't. Well, actually, no. Wait. I think that I was expecting that could do $1 million. This one though, no. I mean, if they hit you, listen. If they come up the next day with $1 million, I want to see PBC say that directly, man. I don't want to hear from Dan Raphael and Conobio and whoever else they might use for that, or Mannix, not Mannix. Yeah, I want to see.
How do you say, BDA? How do you say? Show me receipts. Show me receipts, baby.
Yeah, open the books. Let us see. Show us those receipts, baby. We want to see them receipts.
I'll be honest with you. I'll listen to what those guys have to say, but then I'm going to tune into Coach Malachi because he's going to have his sources between Steve Kim and Rick Glacier out there, and they actually know people, and they'll report the numbers that they hear, and I'll take what's reported versus what his sources say, and that's where I'm probably going to come up with my own roundabout number of what will be the most accurate. But like you said. And Jimmy's the one that brought it on to the air, at least that enlightened me to this way, is that if PBC says that if they say that they sold 1 million pay-per-view buys but only sold 800,000, at the end of the year, they're going to pay the taxes on the 1 million because that's what they said. And if they tell the government, no, we only made 100,000, then that's asking for an audit. You're asking for, you may not get in trouble for fraud, but you're asking for them to have to come audit you because they're going to say, well, you owe us way more than that based off of the revenue you made off of the 200,000 extra buys. Well, no, we only sold 800. Well, you claimed in public this. Which one is it? And what they have to pay taxes on is what's really sold.
Exactly.
So that's why if it sells less than what they want, they'll get a writer to say, go ahead and, beef it up. Like Steve Kim said, they used to always lie about 10 to 50, maybe 20% back in the day of beefing up numbers a little bit. He says now it's probably closer to 40%, like almost 50%, because they're doubling about how much they're exaggerating their numbers by. So now, I don't know if he said that was solid information, but Steve knows people. He knows a lot of people in boxing, and he's got a lot of, I won't say dirt, but connections. And so if he's saying that they're inflating numbers, then the percentage that they're inflating by, if he says it's double what they did back in the 80s, then then there's a very good possibility that the 1.4 really was more along the lines of 700,000.
And Steve Kim was saying that they exaggerated by 40 to 50% of what it really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, yeah. I would say that's accurate.
Rick Glacier is the guy that says that. Jimmy told me that he heard that Rick Glacier gets them from an entertainment lawyer, because once they tally everything up, I think they got to go to a legal representative to get that number locked down, and that entertainment lawyer is the one that's telling Glacier the number, so he would know because he's the go between the promotional entity and the network to try to tally the numbers. So wouldn't surprise me if that's the correct number that Glacier is telling.
Yep. It's going to be closer to the truth if he's going through a source that's that reliable. I'm not going to say anything about Rick Glacier one way or the other. A lot of the information he's put out there makes sense based off of what we've talked about on our show. And we don't know each other. We don't know him. He's never been on our show that I know of. I've never talked to him. Coach Malik has been on our show, but Rick Glacier hasn't. But the stuff that we say and the stuff that he says, and we have no connection to him, seems to match up, then we're either all wrong or we're on the right track because he's in the know. He may not still be very active in the sport, but he's in the know. He knows people. He calls people up. They talk. They have lunch. He's done business with them before. He still has the only person he's burnt bridges with, according to him, is Al Heyman, because he doesn't like Al Heyman. But aside from that, if he calls up Bob and says, "Hey Bob, how'd this do?" Bob's probably going to give him a roundabout accurate number of how the fight did. And of course, like you said, he's got a different source on top of that, but these guys like him. He has pull. He may not be able to, he may not be as much as he used to be, but he's still enough to be able to get more solid information than we have. And everything that he said that's been on Coach Malachi's show, no one's been able to disprove him. So that's why I use, various sources to get my information from. And Coach Malachi's got a pretty solid show because he's got guys that are in the know. They know people and they're connected, and and Steve Cobb is reporting the truth, reporting rumors. So, hey, Chief, and he's known for being a good writer. So,
Chief, Rick Glacier is married to a black woman, right?
Okay. I don't know.
Okay, no, I was just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Were you surprised?
I mean, if he's married to a black woman, then I guess he's, it's not.
No, I'm just asking. I was just going to ask, were you surprised? Like, if that was true, would you be surprised that he's married to a black woman? I'm just saying, it's just a question. What else was I going to say?
If he's married to a black woman, isn't this a second Renaissance conversation?
Why? I'm just asking.
I'm just joking. I honestly don't care who or what his orientation is or anything else for that matter.
No. You're looking too much. You're looking too much into. You're looking too much into the question. I was just going to ask you whether you were if that would have surprised you to know that he's married to a black woman. That's all I was saying.
BDA. All my main girls were Latina mommy.
There you go. Well, listen.
All the side girls were a mixture from Latina mommies to like every other group, but the Spanish girls to the front.
All right, feed him.
I was going to mention
I thought about it before.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, well, even see, there you go. Somebody in the chat goes BDA with the racist undertone. Okay, so I won't ask whether he knows what the race of the wife. That's racist, apparently. Hey, recognize. Don't let me ask you. Don't ever ask me, or don't let me ask you either what race your wife is, because then apparently there's a racist undertone in that. I gotta tell you, people today.
She's a Puerto Rican mommy.
Oh no, that's racist. I sense racist undertones in that answer. Let me tell you. People gotta take it easy out there, man. That's why I'm saying on Friday's show. We want that type of energy, man. We want people to get a little tense. And so tomorrow we're gonna be doing the Open Lines Friday show. Everybody's welcome. But you gotta be on something to jump on the panel. Whether you're on caffeine, amphetamine, some alcohol, cocoa, some hot cocoa, some sugar, whatever. But you cannot show up here.
I'm getting me some
monsters, Red Bulls.
Your deviant behavior.
Well, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, listen. We'll try to keep it constrained here. Or we'll try to contain the behavior. But I suspect things are gonna get crazy. But why not? This is a fight that's been 4 years in the making. We're gonna make it interesting. We're gonna make it exciting. Or like Gonzalo would say, we're gonna make it spicy. Spicy.
Now, Bucho says that. I'm just referencing that because Bucho said it one time. It's like,
yeah, but you keep saying it, so now it's yours. You're the spicy guy. You're the spice guy.
I haven't seen Bucho around in a while. I haven't seen Bucho around in a long time.
Yeah, he hosts the Friday shows. So you saw him last Friday if you were there.
Oh, he did.
That's right.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Don't start spreading the
Dennis
fake.
Leary. To quote Dennis Leary, tonight I'm on NyQuil and Sudafed.
Well, that doesn't sound too bad. And by the way, I think Recognize was about to start the whole thing about how, he thought I was hosting last Friday's show, so that me and Bucho sound alike. We're the same person. Don't start that.
I don't know.
Nah, that's fake news right there.
One time you laughed, and I was like, Maybe go, That laugh sounds awful familiar.
No. Let's not start out the fake news here. Well, anyway, listen, fellas, we got to go. Been on for 2.5 hours.
Right,
we got to save some energy for tomorrow. Yeah, we got to save some energy for tomorrow. So, shout out to Gonzalo, Chief, Recognize. Thank you guys for jumping in. Everybody that donated the super chat. Everybody in the chat.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Thank you guys for joining us. And shout out to everybody in the chat. I'm talking about the Parokua, Mark T. Who else was here? Dark Hado, Real 6 SB90, Fluffy Toasters 89, Knockout Ned, Marcos, the Quags in the house as well. Shout out to the Quags. Shout out to Never Sobers in there as well. Shout out to Never Sobers. Ralph Unreal, Alfredo Contreras. And if I forgot anybody, it's because we got to go, fellas. But thanks again for joining us. Catch you in the next one, fellas. Take it easy. Thanks for watching. Oh, hit the like on the way out. Hit the like. Really helps us out. Take it easy, fellas.
I'm disappointed in everyone totally.